I said hi. How are you? This one doesn't have any photos, is it? Does.
on going to the zoning hearing for Elaine's?
I'm out of town. John is going to go.
Okay, because I'm out of town too.
Yeah, I'm out.
If you think there might be somebody else that might want to attend that? Because I brought my packet that I had.
Well, I'm going to meet with John afterwards
Yeah.
and Bob. So, yeah.
After the meeting, isn't it?
Yeah, let's talk about Elaine's after the meeting. You're going to meet with John, right?
We're going to talk separately. It's going to take a little bit of time, so we're not doing a preparation after the meeting. No, but John is going to attend. No, you're also going to attend.
I'm out of town too that night.
So John will cover it. He was really most vocal during the hearing and explained the composition of that wall and why it's not appropriate. So I thought he'd be the best guy
Oh yeah.
to come.
That's good.
Yeah.
John's getting better and better and better all the time. He's becoming an outstanding member.
Oh yeah. He's good.
And community citizen as well. I'll tell you, all the things he's doing all around town for things is wonderful.
It's great to have an in-house architect.
Yeah, it is. Really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is Elaine's is a real problem. And
What's the
Elaine's is a real problem. And so I want to meet with John, not after I don't mind meeting after this, but I mean a real discussion. We should set some time aside.
Okay.
And if you want to participate in that.
I'll try to do that.
Because there's a lot of information, a lot of material, some of which John wouldn't have, because we met with this group before.
Endless times.
So,
Before doing any of
yeah.
this.
Judy, are we live? Hi, Janice. Good evening, everyone. This is the Historic Preservation Commission, April 17th, 2023. I'm back on vacation mode.
Wishful thinking.
In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe that this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. Pledge allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Copeland,
Present?
Mr. Carroll.
You say Carol?
Yes.
Okay, here. Yeah, you're weird, very weak.
Am I?
Yeah, okay.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes, here.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes, here.
Ms. Bisagno will be late, Ms. Wilson Stridick,
Here.
Mr. Testa,
Here.
Mr. Becker.
Here.
Thank you.
Minutes, March 20th, 2023. You've had an opportunity to review those. Do I have a motion to accept those?
So move.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Abstain.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolutions, KG 3 LLC, 1215 Lafayette Street, Block 1061, Lot 87, Resolution 2023-10, 1121 New York Avenue LLC, 1121 New York Avenue, Block 1117, Lots 25, 26, and 27, Resolution 2023-11, Adis, Inc., 1317 Beach Avenue, Block 1146, Lot 6, 7, 10, and 24, Resolution 2023-12, and Brzezinski, 651 Broad Street, Block 1061, Lot 40, Resolution 2023-12. Do I have a motion to accept those resolutions?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Recuse.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Abstain.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Applications approved or denied in review. You've had a chance to review those. Do I have a motion to accept them?
I will move we accept them.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Before we vote on that, there are a couple of corrections to the language in the minutes in terms of things covered by those in-review applications. Would just note that the Mission Inn application, which is listed as a roof, appears in the application as a garage-only roof and not the roof of the entire Mission Inn. And that's how it was presented in the application. Also, the Puffin LLC is listed as a roof, but the application shows that it's the siding. So
It's what?
The siding. The material is wood, but it's siding and not roof.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to accept those corrections?
So move.
Motion by Mr.
Second that.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes, I recuse myself on Carroll 625 Hughes Street.
Thank you. Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes, I abstain on Skinner, 28 Congress Street.
Thank you. Mr. Testa.
Yes, except abstention on WGB Limited Partnership of 1515 Beach Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Old business, Sacchetti, 402 Clay Street, Block 1061, Lot 57.03. This is a non-contributing pool house.
This last month. Was this heard last month?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But it- Okay, you know the drill. We need name and relationship to the property.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. Adam Crossland with Backish Associates Architects. I'm the project designer. This is the homeowner, Jim Klebb. His wife, Jessica, is home with the girls tonight. The history of this pool house. We received approval for this building approximately a year ago. Accessory buildings in Cape May are limited to a roof height of 10 feet. Jim's wife, Jess, really wanted to put a wood roof on this building. Her contractor told her that they couldn't put a wood roof at the pitch of 10 feet, so they made the building 12 foot tall instead of 10 foot tall, which then meant we didn't meet the zoning for the zone that we're in, actually the zoning for accessory buildings. The property is a very large lot over behind the elementary school, so we were able to put a breezeway connection between the house and the cabana/pool house, which already has the wood roof on it, which then made it comply from a zoning standpoint. So there is a copy of the zoning permit in here, and that's kind of the history. We got approval when we first built it. They built it too high. We ended up getting a summons that the building did not meet code because it was 2 feet too high. We went in and built this breezeway that you see before you tonight, which will attach the accessory building to the house. Therefore, it's considered part of the main dwelling. It's no longer an accessory dwelling, and therefore it can have the 12-foot high roof, and there are pictures showing the wood roof that was put on it.
I'm sorry, can the owner give your last name again, please?
Crossland, C-R-O-S.
No, not you, Adam.
Kleb, K-L-E-B.
Thank you.
Regardless of what we deal with tonight, not the applicant, but you know full well that changes of this nature should have come before the HPC, before the work was done. So here we are again, faced with a situation where the work is done and you're just looking for a rubber stamp from the HPC. It's inappropriate, it's offensive, and you owe this organization an apology.
Gladly apologize if that's.
You were wrong.
I was not at the site. I did not tell them to make the building 2 feet higher, but since I'm involved, I would gladly take responsibility for that. I wasn't at the site the day the contractor told them to build the roof 2 feet higher, but I'm involved in this.
How about
I'm
the
a
building,
professional.
how about the breezeway? You didn't know about that either?
The breezeway's not yet built.
So-
That's why we have the plans here. That's why we're
So
here tonight.
the issue is, there's a change on the job site and you didn't know it?
I didn't know about the roof until it was an issue. And I know the zoning in Cape May from working here for years. And I said, you have 2 options. You can either lower the roof down to 10 feet or build a breezeway to connect it or go for a variance.
What was the pitch at 10 feet? What was the pitch?
It was a very low pitch. That's why it would have had to be a
What
metal
was
roof.
it?
It was like a 212.
Adam, I bring this up because it has been a continuing issue with you, and I want you to recognize this organization and treat us appropriately. So, having said that, go with your presentation.
Okay, so if we go first through the set of plans, which are titled Z1 through Z4. Z1 is just a site plan, which shows the property. We got approvals for the house when it was built a number of years ago. We got approvals for the garage that was built a number of years ago. We got approval for the pool that was put in about 1.5 years ago. And like I said, we had approval to build the pool house to meet the 10-foot height requirement. The building has a 12-foot, so in order to make the building comply with zoning, we have to attach it to the main dwelling. So what you see tonight is a proposal to build a breezeway connecting the main dwelling with the cabana. So that's shown here if you go to sheet Z2. It's connecting the deck off the house to the cabana building. The first drawing is a plan view. Z3 shows the roof, and then the elevations are shown on sheet Z4.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The back of the packet, it's an aerial view of the property, so you know where it is. And then I just have pictures of the existing condition, which is the cabana building built 12-foot high with the wood roof that's on there. Are there any questions about those pictures?
Well, we'll go around the room. Thank you.
Okay, and then, you want me to go down the materials list? It's really just gonna be a
No,
composite breezeway with a wood roof.
no, it's... They're pretty clear. So, John, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So conceptually, I don't have a problem with this. However, the drawings that you submitted don't accurately portray what you're planning because what you're showing can't be built the way you're showing it. If you look at drawing Z3, where the roof meets the new pool house, the photographs show you have 2 different levels of roof there, so the configuration of the pitch on the breezeway roof cannot meet that roof the way you're showing it. Furthermore, you're showing brackets on the elevations that are not depicted in the photographs, so I'm really wondering what actually you're going to build there, because that same problem shows up in elevation number 3 on drawing Z4.
We are gonna be, the lower portion, that roof is gonna have to be taken off and be rebuilt.
So then you're going to raise, so the piece that comes out off the end that has a lower roof, you're raising the whole roof up to
In
the
order to
same
make
height?
it work, that roof has to come off, yes.
So that means you're going to extend that, okay, that'll work.
Yep.
Okay, but I think we need to have it drawn that way.
We
So-
didn't do the construction drawings yet for this. I wanted to
Okay.
make sure, we had zoning approval. I wanted to get HPC approval, then we usually go into full construction documents. That's the next thing on the,
Okay.
if we get approval tonight, we'll do, we certainly have you guys sign off on them in review before we do anything.
That's all I have.
Before we go forward with that, Adam, we too will need the construction plan. So I think when we go around the table, it seems like that this will be a conceptual approval tonight until we see the actual plans that you're going to build with.
Okay. I'd rather have that done in review, but if that's how you want to do it, I guess we can come back again.
No, I think it's appropriate to come back. Lorraine is a city council member, and she's the liaison. She doesn't vote, but we do invite her to participate. Lorraine, do you have any questions or observations on this?
No, I was not here for the initial approval when the roof, well, it would have been approved with the roof being 2 foot lower. The as-built, you're going to make sure that the breezeway is going to be the same materials as the existing,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
And homeowners here who can comply with that, make sure to comply with that, yes.
okay.
Same materials, yes.
And just to clarify, were you out, you weren't on the construction site, you stated that you're the architect of record, and you weren't on the construction site during the build of this?
I'm not the architect of record, I'm the project designer, but I was
project-
not on site during the construction of an accessory building, no. The homeowner called me and told me what the issue was, and I spoke with the zoning official, and we found a way to fix it, but I was not on site.
Okay,
They were trying to get it done quickly for the summer. They have 2 little girls, they have a pool, they wanted a place to put them, so they had a contractor that had a couple weeks where he wasn't doing anything, and he was able to get the project built, and it did get built 2 feet too high.
there, yeah, no other questions?
Corbin?
I agree with what John said, and I agree that, yeah, the final construction drawings have to come back and be reviewed by the full board.
Tom?
When I first looked at this plan, I wasn't aware of the interaction with the zoning board and everything. And my first thought was seeing a breezeway to connect a house to a swimming pool and everything. I think, what do you need a breezeway to get people out into the open, to be in a swimming pool or to the outhouse? It comes out looking like a conglomeration of badly thought out construction. And that's really what it's turning out to be. And I really think this was just very, very poor planning and observation. And if you already have to do reconstruction of this roof to deal with that, you could save the money from not building the breezeway and bring the roof down to the proper size, probably for the same expense. And then it would really look like the 2 buildings set out, so you have a house and a pool house and the swimming pool. I really don't like it the way it is. I know it's not in a highly visible area of the historic district, but it still matters. Some of the areas around town that are growing are coming more and more into the historic area. You just take some of the areas a little bit to the west of us that have been absorbed into our historic area. So I do not support this application.
Okay. Thank you. It's not ideal.
I really don't have any comments.
Janice?
No comment.
Jim?
Small comment. Materials are satisfactory. I agree with Tom that it really looks like some artificial set of ramps connecting two buildings. I think it's really poor looking, but it's a non-contributing structure, and it isn't going to be damaged, almost like, little harm, little foul, little harm. So I could support this, but reluctantly, because I just don't think it's very good. And if you want, I'll introduce a motion for conceptual approval,
Yeah,
and we can
yes.
vote on it.
Do I have a motion?
Motion for conceptual approval, which of course is the nature of having to come back to us for final, so.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Copeland?
I agree with Tom's comments. I think the problem here, as you've already heard, is with the project manager and planning of this project. Because it's not visible from, or clearly visible from the street, and because it's a non-contributing structure, I'm going to vote yes, not because it deserves it in itself, but I think the applicant deserves some consideration for the poor advice that he received.
Mr. Carroll?
I will vote yes to, following Warren's suggestion that I really don't want to put this harm on the applicant, because I know it's his fault.
Ms. Campbell?
I vote yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment, if you will. I know you guys make some recommendations sometime to the master plan. Garages in Cape May are allowed to be 18 feet. Any other type of accessory building is only limited to 10. This building was at 12. I think it makes it look a lot nicer at 12 than it would have looked at 10. I don't know if you ever have the opportunity to make a recommendation that they increase the height for accessory buildings. I think it would make them look a lot nicer. I've done a couple of these where they're so squat with when you're only limited to 10 foot. If we would have had 12 foot, this would have been a non-issue. And we wouldn't have to do that breezeway. I don't like it either, but it's the only way to comply.
And you as a contractor are at liberty to send suggestions like that into the planning board as well.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Next order of business. Is new business, New Jersey Cape Properties LLC, 1006 Washington Street, Block 1110, Lot 2. This is not rated. It's a renovation of an existing residential structure and an addition.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
It's a contributor.
This is a rated property. It's rated as non-contributing. It's by the base form that was filled out by Joan Berkey in September of 2007 when they were conducting surveys.
It's rated as contributing,
Yeah, it is.
Contributing.
a contributing, Corbin, yeah.
Contributing in 2007.
It's on the application.
Yeah, I apologize, Warren. That was my error.
Yes.
That was
Right,
my mistake.
That's a typo, so sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It is a contributing building, which makes it more interesting. So,
Can you please turn your mics on and move your mics close to your mouth? Both mics should be on.
you're on.
So you have to
This-
see
this
green,
mic.
right?
Just push that button. There you
You
go.
got it.
My name is Chris Balinson. I represent NJK Properties LLC. With respect to the property, we're here to talk about 1006 Washington Street, identified on your tax map as Lot 3 in Block 1110. It is a contributing property which NJK Properties proposes to renovate completely. Right now, it's in deplorable condition, both inside and out. Inside is gutted completely, and the outside is not what it should be.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, sir. Are you part of the architectural firm, Blaine Steinman?
I'm Chris Balinson. I'm a lawyer for the applicant.
Okay, so you're an attorney, Chris
Yes.
Balinson.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. The structure was built sometime in the late 1870s. And what NJK Properties proposes to do is a complete renovation to restore it to its original wood clapboard on the outside, new roof, and obviously all of the accessory accoutrements that you guys are used to and like to see. Blaine Steinman is the architect with us tonight. Jeff DiMatteo is a owner's representative who's also with us. We can go through in your discretion. I'll have Blaine go through a description of the property, then we can go through your details.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you again. I didn't get this gentleman's name.
Jeff DiMatteo.
Could you spell your name, please?
Dimatteo.
Thank you.
Blaine?
Good evening. As Mr. Balanson explained, this is a structure that was built around 1875 or so. We looked at some old maps, and we read through the information that was provided by the city of Cape May. There were some additions in the back that have since changed. The main structure is a rectangular structure that's still there. It's in bad shape, bad disrepair. It's gutted on the inside. There's an old screen porch in the back, and we want to restore it. We want to bring it back to its original grandeur and then some, make it what it should be. So we were hired to be the architect for the owners, and what we're trying to do is bring it back to a house that somebody could live in. In doing so, we kept the addition part towards the back of the house. We have a porch across the front that exists now, and we wrapped it around the side to connect to the addition. Going through the house as it exists, I mean, we did prepare a set of existing plans. They're in your submission set. Page P11 is the plans. It looks like living, dining, kitchen areas were on the first floor. Second floor looks like it was probably 3 bedrooms. And then there's an attic area that you go up to. You have to kind of duck your head, but it looks like there was probably 2 rooms, maybe used as bedrooms or whatever they used for up on the 3rd level, up in the attic area. If you look at P12, you could see drawings of the front elevation, the rear elevation, as they exist today. 13 and 14 are the side elevations. You can't really see from these drawings the condition of the wood, and the siding has been replaced with asbestos siding. So our plan is to remove the asbestos siding and replace it with cedar lapboard siding. You can actually see that when you go inside the house now from the inside out, because everything's been stripped down to the studs. So we know that what the original siding is, and we intend to match it.
The roof is also asbestos?
The roof is asphalt shingle.
Asphalt shingle.
I believe the roof is asphalt shingle. We intend to make it asphalt shingle. Existing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's asphalt. One second. Just want to be sure about that. I believe the existing roof is asphalt shingle. Anyway, that's what we intend for the roof. Front porch railings, anything that's been damaged or rotted or deteriorated in any way, we're going to replace with wood, and try to bring it to the nature that it originally was. According to your information, it's in the Italianate style. We don't plan to change the style of the building, and we're also planning to construct a garage in the back, and that style will complement and be similar to the building in the front. There was at one point a garage in the back. There was a garage on the side of the building at one point, looking at some of the older maps, and I have those if you don't, or if you need more information. There's a map that we found from 1933. I don't know if it's a map or more of an aerial photograph that I didn't see in your information, but actually shows a garage in this exact location. So we put the garage back there, 1, because it made sense. That's the side that the driveway's on. 2, because that's where we believe there was a structure at one point. And going back to the original around the turn of the century, there was a garage on the side that was actually, looks like it was connected to the house. When I say looks like it, I'm going by the old maps, the Sanborn map and some of the other ones that you are aware of. So on the first floor, keeping at the living spaces, if you go to sheet P2, you can see that we're keeping living, dining, kitchen. We're adding a proper stair that meets code to take you to the second floor, as well as a powder room, a pantry, and then rebuilding the back porch. You go to the second floor, we have 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. And then we put an addition on the back portion so that, not to change the view of the house from the street side, where you go up now to an actual bedroom and bathroom on the 3rd floor, where there currently is 2 in an attic space. If you look to P5, you can see the proposed front and rear elevations. Main building, very similar. You can see the addition in the back on the right, and the porch, how it comes across the front. We've replaced the railings. We're reconstructing the columns, the brick supports. The foundation's in pretty bad shape, too. We're most likely going to have to use a structural engineer to work with that, but it'll be brick in nature. P6 and P7 show what the sides will look like. Again, similar style. We're basically going by the front. All the materials will be wood as indicated on our application.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Jim, you want to?
This is always the time when you start me out, and I'd like John to do it because it's such a complicated matter. But let me say, for my comments, it seems to me that this is an application with an excellent materials list. That much insofar as it relates to a contributing structure is good. However, I'm a person who likes to see the before and the after right next to each other. Right. And as I see this, it is a huge and massive addition to a simple house that I have difficulty picking out the original structure from it. So to me, it's just a, and had this been an original design, I think it's perfectly fine. Whether it is appropriate and reduces this house from a contributing structure to something that's not contributing is something that gives me pause. I don't have the expertise to determine that, but the very size and complexity of the addition gives me a lot of trouble. That's my broad view, and expect that the commission members will focus in on what they think is relevant.
Thank you. Janice?
He just said what I was going to say. I can't tell where
I
the
did it
original.
so poorly, so you'll have to.
No, I can't tell where the original building is and where the addition is, and
If you
I can't
look
really
on sheet P2,
visualize the impact.
do you see the plan on sheet P2?
P2.
Let me know when you're ready.
This is the, P2 is an interior,
P2 is the first floor plan.
right? So we don't regulate interior?
No,
So
I'm
it's-
trying
just
to
gonna show you where the addition
explain
is.
to you what the addition is.
Yeah, but you're trying to explain to me, but the thing is that what we regulate is the exterior visual impact and also the impact on the neighborhood. I'm not an architect, I'm not good at reading these drawings, and so if the drawing doesn't convey what the original is and what the addition is going to add to it, it's very hard for me to judge it.
Well, the darker lines do indicate the additions to it. My concern isn't that I can't read the plan, it's that I think the plan is enormous, far bigger than it should be for the structure that's involved here. I lose it. And
This is
maybe,
all-
Janice, you're helped by actually seeing the outside representations rather
Right.
than and when you look that way, it appears to be every bit as massive as we thought, as I thought.
I will suggest that this plan can't be built without any zoning board relief. The lot is certainly big enough to accommodate
Excuse me?
The lot is big enough to accommodate the house. There's no zoning relief that needs to be,
Yeah, I'm not really concerned with the limitations of the zoning ordinances, lot coverages, floor area, and things like that. What I'm concerned about is the substantial nature of a modification in addition to a contributing structure that might cause it to not be contributing. That's a different question than whether you're legally entitled to build out as big as you like to be.
adding that so you know it's not a situation where we're trying to cram this addition onto a house and that needs.
No, you're cramming it onto the house, not into the lot. I mean, that's my view of it. But there are others here who,
Well, historic preservation is about preservation, and that's what we're judging when we look at these.
Do you have what the square footage of the current structure is, and then how large the addition is?
Yeah, actually, it's all indicated on the first page. Current structure, not including the third floor area because it's really not habitable space, but you could see it was clearly used, is 1,218 square feet. It's a very small house.
And the addition?
The addition is 2,465 square feet, so still a relatively small house, but yeah, it's a small house that we're
You're doubling.
adding on to. We're doubling the size of it. Well,
Doubling
keep
it.
in mind, though, that the third floor is 444 square feet now and completely in the back. So it's really more like 2,000 if you're comparing first and second floors, which is really what you see. Still, it's a relatively small house, even after the addition, and it does fully comply with zoning. I know I heard the comments, and I appreciate them, but this is what our thought process was.
When you look at historic structures, contributing structures, the addition with the Secretary of Interior in their updated release 2017, it speaks clearly that the addition should be clearly separate, and theoretically, it could be removed without damaging the original structure. This doesn't seem to meet that standard. But let's continue around the room. Yep.
Well, one thing I would say is it would be nice to have seen a streetscape. You know, it would be nice to see how this house looks against all the other houses. Although the pictures of the house are very clear.
Yeah, I thought they were submitted, aren't they? I believe there were streetscapes submitted. I don't have them. I thought the owner was submitting them.
I don't think I saw any
I
streetscapes.
didn't see
no. Plenty of color pictures of the house, but no streetscape.
No, a lot of pictures of the house, that's fine. And I do think it is true that the addition is huge. I mean, is big in proportion to this little baby house that the tinsmith lived in, right? So, I don't know what the tinsmith would be living in today, but I don't think it's this. So that I think is really an issue, is that the addition is pretty large. And although it doesn't look that large exactly on the plans, on the first floor, but the second floor, that's what I couldn't exactly follow. So the second floor, though, all of this is the addition, right? On
The
P3?
shaded walls are the added walls, the
On
hollow walls.
P3.
On P3, yeah, the walls shown hollow are the addition, or the existing walls to remain.
Right. So it's also being built off the back.
It's being built off the back. The back footprint was the
all of this
existing,
is the-
and the addition was on the right-hand side.
Yes, that part I got.
The second floor covers all of that, correct?
Yeah, okay, all right, okay.
Stands over the porch. And the bump out in the back isn't taking up new space. The bump out in the back is above the existing screened-in portion. So that footprint in the back doesn't expand.
Again, we were looking at,
I think the issue, besides the square footage, the issue is when you look at the house from the front, you have a large addition that's clearly visible on the
Inside.
side, which changes the whole character of this historic house. So other members can comment on that, but in addition to the size of this addition, it's the visibility from the street, and it changes the look of the house.
It's kind of engulfed.
Pip, other comments?
No, that's mainly it.
Tom?
Recently, and I would say in the last 5+ years, we have a new Cape May, and it's attracting a lot of new home buyers that really want homes the size that maybe they're moving from, or they're used to, or they expect to live in. But they really want to be in downtown historic Cape May because it's such a great place to live. We would be very, very consistent with our past rulings if we said the back of this house can't overpower or be taller or be wider than the house in front of it. If you find a way to extend it back into a backyard and landscaping, we've been very, very generous in that. I can think of just endless examples, one of which is the house of our mayor of Cape May, who did a wonderful addition in the back to get that extra room that you need. When you look at page P5, you can just, as you see this house, you can also see steroid addition in the back that is hanging over it, not to mention the addition on the side. I think you could do very, very well with doing a 2-story addition that would include a wraparound porch, a first and second floor addition to give you the things to incorporate the back. But rather than going to that 3rd floor addition, you need to go a little bit further back, you can.
No, backwards, not sideways. Backwards, not sideways.
Yes, yes. And then kind of plan landscaping and things around it to let it sink in more into the backyard. And I think you could end up with you could end up with the space that you want, although it might be a little bit more like they call in New Orleans the shotgun house, where you go in the front door and you could fire all the way through the house. It would give you the living space. Your garage is huge, and I don't blame you. I'm lucky enough to have a 4-car garage in town because my house was built by a car dealer, and I love it. So but that's way in the back. That kind of fits in. You are in one of the most historic areas. That line of houses right on down, is really one of the most important areas, and on every tour that we give in Cape May. I will admit this house is in rather terrible condition. Whoever had it before you, who stripped everything out, didn't do anybody a favor other than giving you a fresh start. So I would support reasonable changes to make this something that would meet with the approvals that we've given to other people in a very similar situation. Thank you.
Corbin?
You took the words out of my paper. You looked at it. I mean, seriously, this side is not appropriate to this style building. This building is narrow. It's deep, as Tom said. Do the extra. If you need the extra room, do it off the back. There is currently a screen. There are 2 additions on the back plus a screen porch that can maybe be incorporated in your additional space. The front porch only goes across the front of the building. It doesn't wrap around. They didn't have wraparound porches back then. So, this, keep the front porch as it is. Duplicate the saw and scroll, the scroll saw balustrade so that it fits with it. But, and do the back, if there's room back there to put a smaller screen porch and no balcony.
It's like a Romeo and Juliet balcony. It's perfect. It's like a Juliet balcony. It's perfect. The Italian Day style.
We're not doing Romeo and Juliet.
I understand.
Lorraine?
Yeah, for the most part, the comments were well received, I think. And
John?
I'm sure John's going to have
So, I certainly applaud your desire to maintain the historical integrity of the house. Unfortunately, you're in direct violation of language straight from our standards. So if you look on page 71 of our standards, first one is an addition should be smaller in scale than the original building. So not only you're more than double the square footage, you've more than tripled the lot coverage and more than doubled the floor area ratio. Clearly a violation of that standard. Number two, new addition should be clearly, I'm reading directly from our standards, by the way, so on page 71. New addition should clearly differentiate from the historic structure. Well, unfortunately, what I did is I just sketched the existing elevation on the right side in a dashed line with the proposed elevation. The existing house's integrity has entirely disappeared, so that we're not maintaining any differentiation from what's been added to what was already there. It's as if this house is completely transformed to a new shape, form, proportion, size, volume, which is, again, in direct violation of page 71 of our ordinance. And lastly, it states specifically, it is not appropriate to construct an addition that is taller than the original building. And your new roof ridge is at least 3 feet above the existing roof ridge. So that's at the macro level. At the micro level, a couple of concerns. It looks like there's some very significant and wonderful, as dilapidated as this house is, character-defining components. One of them is the balustrade on the front porch, which is really exquisite. Now, I don't know what the status of its, I'll call it structural integrity is, but you've designed a new one that differs quite significantly from what that balustrade was. And I also can't tell whether or not you're using the chamfered columns that were very distinctive at that, in that period and for this particular house. So I might suggest, gentlemen, that given the significant volumetric problems or questions, and I have to simply call them violations regarding our standards, specifically stated in them, that you may want to table this and come back and resubmit it with a, I'll say, a more appropriate and compliant proposal for next month. Just, that's something that you were able to do without us having to deny you this evening.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just
Anybody has any,
looking
I'm
for-
sorry, go ahead.
Just looking for some direction. Been taking notes with your comments, because I appreciate them. One, I heard Tom Carroll mention that a wraparound porch would be appropriate, and then I heard comment over here that it would not. The others were all good, except for, in the information that we received from the city of Cape May, they, as you know, they give you a written description from an architectural historian. I'm looking for it now, but it specifically says that the balustrades were not original.
Yes, but they dated them from about 1900. So although they're not original, they're 125 years old, roughly.
Columns we were keeping original.
Yeah, the columns were original. Oh, one other thing I didn't mention is, we do not address zoning issues here, but I believe that the height of your garage is in violation of the zoning ordinance as well.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but okay, I'll
Yeah, just
double check
check
on
that. Yeah, yeah.
I will stand my wraparound porch certainly was done at that period of time. What do you say, Corbin?
I would say you're right on the cusp.
Oh, I wanted to fight.
Oh,
Well, if we were talking about just a wraparound porch, it would be no problem here.
Porch, you're both right.
But we're not.
Not on this style of a building.
No, not on this style building.
Uh,
But the problem is whether we would give the applicant some leeway on that element. The problem really is looking at the house from the front. That addition changes the whole house. From the side, you've already seen. But I mean,
P5 versus P12,
yeah.
in terms of the view, just does it all for me.
I don't know if you have our design standards.
I do.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I think that's more to the the point.
We agreed to table the application and come back with a different design, a modified design.
If you want, if the applicant is acceptable, I'll make a motion to table.
You have to consent to the extension. Yeah,
Which,
yeah, you'll consent to the extension of the time
I'm asking for a vote for the.
for action.
Correct.
when you do come back, I agree with the comments that were made. In addition to your materials list, the garage door is not, I didn't, maybe it is broken out and I missed it, but the garage door material or the design,
We submitted a cut sheet on the garage.
it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Back.
I missed it. And the Heritage Series wood windows, the ones you're talking about are the ones that are primed and not clad. Is that correct?
Yes.
It should be, if you would delineate that on the materials list. Do I have a motion to table this?
Motion to table, subject to waiver by the applicant of the running of the time period.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes,
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes,
Ms. Wilson Striddick,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank you.
for your comments.
by the way, I disagree with the fact that she says these are modern with railings. 'Cause this style of railing, because I had a house around on Columbia Avenue, it was built in 1872, had very similar railing to it.
I just said that your comments that I received from the city said they're not original. They weren't part of the original design.
It may have been a later design, but it was the same type of what they did then, so.
Next order of business is Healy, 236 Grant Street, Block 1019, Lot 13.01. This is a non-contributing house and a demolition. That's going to be followed at the same time. 236 Grant Street, Block 1019, Lot 1301 is non-contributing, and that will be a new house. But first, we have to deal with the demolition. So,
Good evening. Good evening. Catherine Healy, seventh generation in Cape May, and I'm building this, looking to build for a ninth generation in my family.
Good evening, everybody. My name is James Chadwick. I'm an architect and engineer with an office in Ocean City. I've been here in front of you a couple times through the years, most recently for a renovation of Ms. Healy's main structure on Grant Avenue. So she has a couple properties that are side by side, has a large rear yard, and one lot contains her current structure, which is undergoing renovation and an addition that the commission approved. Her second lot immediately adjacent also fronts on Grant Avenue. This is number 236, and has a large, I'll call it a dog leg in the back. The commission has previously approved a detached garage on that rear portion of the property, as well as some other site improvements. Kathy came to me several months ago with the idea of renovating and potentially lifting her existing house at 236. It is a mid-1970s, I think, construction, Cape Cod-style residence with two front-facing dormers. It's one of a cookie cutter of thousands that you'll find throughout South Jersey and throughout the United States. Your commission has deemed that building to be a non-contributing structure. So as we reviewed what the goals were with that building, ultimately it came to a logical conclusion that with what we wanted to accomplish on the property, the more logical alternative was to remove the non-contributing structure and provide a new structure that, when completed, would be more in keeping with the tone and character of the period of interest that you folks are interested in. So I've done a couple demolition applications in the past, not before you, but before Ocean City. So I'm generally familiar with the testimony that I've got to provide, and I'm going to dive into that right now unless anybody else has any questions before I start.
Do you have the 9 points of demolition that Cape May looks for?
I do.
So if you go through those one by one, that would be helpful.
Got it right here.
Thank you.
Like I said, I've done this a couple times. We has, as you mentioned, there are 9 specific items that we need to cover. The first one is its historical, architectural, and aesthetic significance. We've looked at the property. Kathy, as she said, she's a 7th generation resident here in town. The building, as we know, has no known historical value. It was built in, we believe, mid-1970s to mid-1980s. We don't know of any famous people that lived there. We don't know that there were any battles fought on that property. There's not a cemetery on it. What we have is a run-of-the-mill, non-contributing structure that we want to remove. We do know from some of your literature that the property previously contained an old railroad depot and railroad tracks that, to my understanding, were removed in the 1950s. So there are no signs, indicators, remnants of anything related to that old train station that we're aware of on the property, no train tracks or anything like that. We simply want to remove a non-contributing structure. So from that perspective, it has no, in our opinion, historical, architectural, or aesthetic significance. Number 2 on your list, its current and potential use for those purposes currently permitted by this chapter and for the use proposed. It's a single-family residence.
And it will stay a single-family resident for the rest of my life and hopefully for many of my children's future lives.
So it's a single-family residence in a single-family zone. There's no particular special use that's occurred in this building that we're aware of. There's nothing particularly special about the use at all or about its structure. The run-of-the-mill
Okay.
Cape Cod. Number 3, we have to talk about its importance to the city and the extent to which its historical or architectural value is such that its removal will be detrimental to the district and/or the public interest. As I've already mentioned, the structure is a non-contributing structure and has no historical or architectural value. As such, its removal will not be detrimental to the district nor to the public interest. Cape Cod style with front-facing gable dormers is a common building type, and there's nothing special about the structure. Removal of the structure and construction of a new building will, we think, result in a significant aesthetic improvement to the property, which will be a benefit.
Let's stick with the demolition element, not what's going to replace it.
Okay.
Next item.
The extent to which it is of such old, unusual, or uncommon design or craftsmanship that it could not be reproduced or could be produced only with great difficulty. Again, to Cape Cod, there's thousands or millions of them. There's nothing difficult about reproducing this structure. We have to talk about the extent to which its retention would increase property values, promote business, create new positions, attract tourists, and stimulate interest and study in architecture and design, or make the city a more attractive and desirable place in which to live. As I said, the structure is an easily recognized architectural style. that's easily reproduced. There's nothing special about it. People aren't going to come to Cape May to see a 1970s Cape Cod. They will come to Cape May, and I was one of those when I was a young architectural student who came down here to learn about the older structures, to sketch them, to understand them. There are a great many structures that are useful for that. This isn't one of those. And in addition to that, although the building is well maintained, the floor elevation presents a significant impediment to preservation of this non-contributing structure. Were the owner to spend significant funds in a renovation, it then becomes a substantial improvement, and we have to lift it up. Doesn't make sense to do that.
That's not part of the, if you'd stick right to the 9 points.
We have to talk about the probable impact of its removal upon the ambiance of the historic district. Again, it's a non-contributing structure, so in my opinion, its removal will not have a detrimental effect upon the historic district. Number 7, we have to talk about the structural soundness and integrity of the building and the economic feasibility of restoring or rehabilitating the structure so as to comply with the requirements of the applicable building codes. This is where I do need to talk for a second about those things such as floor elevation. Its floor is below the design flood elevation. Any substantial renovation is going to require significant amounts of money to be spent to raise this building. I will say the building has structural integrity. It just doesn't make sense to put that money into a non-contributing structure. We have to talk about the compelling reasons for not retaining the structure or improvements at its present site.
Mr. Chadwick, actually, points 8 and 9 relate to relocation of a building, so it's not applicable here.
They're moot.
Yeah.
I was going to get to that, but thank you. Generally, it's simple, as I've said from the very beginning. It's a non-contributing structure
Okay.
that we think the commission should allow us to remove.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I will move to approve the demolition of the property in question.
Second.
Thank you.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next order of business, as I mentioned earlier, is a non-contributing new structure at
Yes.
that site.
And I would like to happily say that, you know, I have children that grew up with the Lord family here, and it's so wonderful to see these children in their 20s and 30s wanting to be in Cape May and wanting to live around Cape May. And they work remotely now. And I felt that improving my property, I have an unbelievable piece of property right downtown. And my 2 of my 3, you know, have launched, and they can work remotely. And that's really the primary reason I want to build the property, to have my children with me throughout the year.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we submitted to you as part of application the whole series of documents that are required. The
I'm
app,
sorry to interrupt, but are we looking for conceptual or final tonight?
we'd like final if you can get to that point, but we certainly would want conceptual when we walk out of here tonight.
We are looking at no variances needed. This is a sizable piece of land that we purchased in 1974. We built the one home in 1976. I helped my father build it. And happily, my father's still with me, and I showed him the drawings recently, and he was enthusiastic.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
So we submitted the series of documents that are required, the list of various materials, photographs of some structures within the neighborhood. You have a plot plan drawing showing the site, and from that plot plan, you can see the rather large lot that encompasses this property. And as you look at that plan, Ms. Healy's other structure is to the left of this lot. She's at 248. So you've already approved the garage in the back. There is a driveway currently that runs up the right-hand side of this property that will be utilized to gain that access to that garage. But part of our application will be a modification, slight modification of the alignment of that driveway. The gist of the application, obviously, is the architecturals, and you all have a packet of, I believe, 8 sheets of architectural drawings. The first 4 are elevation drawings, front, side, rear, et cetera. And then the remaining 4 sheets are the floor plans of the proposed structure. The building will generally sit in the same approximate location as the existing Cape Cod that's there, although it will be a little bit longer in length. It generally will sit in the same location on the lot. What we propose is a ground level portion of the building that will have a ground level entry foyer. It'll have, oops, wrong sheet. A ground level entry foyer and a storage room, and then a 3-car garage area behind the storage room and the elevator foyer that's at the front of the building. There will be a cutout in the building at the ground level on the right-hand side as you view it from the street. That recesses the overhead garage door underneath the building, so it's generally not going to be visible from the street. And that does 2 things. It eliminates the visibility of an overhead door, but it also gives us turning radius to go from the driveway and get in underneath the building. Then behind that is an area of covered patio below a first-floor deck above. At the first floor level of the building, we will have a bedroom at the front of the building with a wraparound porch, the entry foyer that will have an elevator in that foyer area. The living kitchen and dining area will be at the first floor of the residence, and then a large deck, part of which is covered at the back of the building. There'll be a fireplace in the living room, and we'll have stairs at the rear of the structure that will also provide us access from the rear deck down to ground level. In the building, you can take the elevator up or take the stairs that are in the front foyer up to the second floor of the building, which will have 3 full bedrooms. There's a small study in there. As Ms. Healy said, her daughters, 2 of them will be able to work from home. And this study will give them an appropriate place to do that kind of work, separate from their bedrooms. There are ample bathrooms, walk-in closets, et cetera, and again, a small covered deck off the back of the building at the second floor level, and a small decorative deck off the front of the building as well. And then when you get to the upper level of the building, what we've called the half-story, that generally is a little more habitable space contained underneath the sloping roofs of the structure with a couple dormers to provide necessary ceiling height in that area as well. There's 2 bedrooms in that area as well as a lounge with, again, a covered deck at the rear of the structure. Generally, we've created, I think, an aesthetically pleasing structure. There are a number of 3- and/or 4-story structures within the immediate neighborhood. So we don't believe that our building overpowers or outscales any of the structures nearby. And in fact, the last time I was here, this board approved a tower element addition to Ms. Healy's main structure on her house next door. That was a 3-story tower. So We think the size and scale of this building will fit in nicely with her building and the building that's adjacent to hers, which is also a 3.5-story structure. In regards to finished materials, we've provided the finished schedule that you've requested. Standing seam metal roof. I know the last time we were here talking about standing seam metal roofs, there was a discussion about limiting the height of the standing seam. And we agreed, I think, on that one to 1.25 inches maximum height for the standing seam. We would make that same commitment on this house.
Well, we want to make an additional observation on the metal roof, so there's no confusion. When you have the need for a return or something on a corner, the metal, many of the metal roofs today have this very wide piece that comes down on a ridge or something. That is not appropriate. On this plan, for example, the porch, I think, would require a 45-degree turn, 90-degree turn. And how that's capped is important to us.
45-degree or 90-degree turn where?
Well, the porch.
At the front
Don't
where
you
it
have a
intersects
return?
with the tower?
This
I'm
is the
looking at-
side.
I'm
sorry.
looking at
This is the front.
either one.
Either one?
The porch roof has a return.
Yep. It's got a corner, that's where you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
The metal roofs today, many of the manufacturers include a very wide element,
Cap, for lack of a better term.
but it's very wide.
Yep.
It's not appropriate in Cape May. So we're going to need a commitment to have something substantially different.
Okay.
One of the elements, we didn't have in the Cape Cod was this wraparound front porch, and we achieved that in this design.
There's some nice breezes on her property that come from two directions depending upon the
Straight.
time of the day.
Yeah, straight down Park Boulevard.
Yeah, I was talking about the material.
Yeah.
The railing system, white vinyl. We have approved vinyl and other plastic-like products, but not the ones that have a high gloss or a high shine.
Right, that's not a problem.
So we're looking for something that would have a more appropriate gloss to it, as if it were
Say
painted.
a muted or a
Satin finish,
satin finish.
not a problem. I prefer that myself. And, if we are trying to go with the white accent from what the original house was, but if you wanted us to put teak on the top or something, that could be done.
Kathy, let me have this for a second.
So-
For the members of our commission on my right, we were holding these and you probably didn't get a chance to see them.
Could you pass those around?
I would
Certainly.
be glad to do so. These are just our initial renderings of what we think it'll look like.
It'll be like a blue,
Desired color scheme, anyway.
a blue-gray.
Before we go, I'm sorry, are you?
I'm
No,
through?
yes.
Before we go around the room, maybe I'm the only one that's a little confused here. A sensitive area is the garages and where they're located and how they can be seen. I'm looking at this document. It's not clear to me how you're accessing those garages.
The driveway on the right of the structure, you're going to get to about,
This,
Yes,
yep,
yep,
that driveway on the right of the structure, when you get about 40 or so feet back, you'll take a left-hand turn.
it's almost like a carport, which was a
Take
really
you
nice,
to an area that is covered but the garage doors are recessed
40,
approximately 14 feet so that we can make that turn and keep those doors' visibility from the street limited.
it becomes almost like a carport, so as we're arriving in and going into the house and maybe not putting them in the garage for
Mr. Copeland,
Yes,
as you look at the ground floor level plan, this is the tower at the front, so you're coming along this side, you make that turn, left-hand turn. This area here is covered by building, but open all along here. The door is recessed.
right. And so I understand that, and I'm comfortable with that. I just, I'm just, maybe I'm the only one. The clarification is you're coming down here and turning in.
Yes,
Is that correct?
correct.
And it just shows a grass block driveway.
Yes, we want we want it to be less
Impervious.
impervious,
Impervious
pervious material, and,
So theoretically, the grass would grow.
Right.
right,
And that driveway, although we can turn left to get underneath the building,
it also gives
driveway
us,
continues around the back of the structure.
for the
to lead
detached
you over
garage.
To the detached garage.
Yeah, no.
Not 4
yeah,
cars,
I'm
but
just
3
trying
cars.
I'm trying to understand this part.
You would not be able to turn into the garage were it not recessed back. I think
Correct.
that's what's being said.
Exactly.
No, that's not the question.
Then I've missed
Trying
it
to
too.
get clarification. This material here, that's all I was asking.
Yes, it's the pavers with the grass growing through.
It's an impervious glass block,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And is that means you're going to change the rest of this driveway to that same material?
correct.
That's correct. And the driveway that goes back to the detached garage isn't built yet. Well, maybe in rough form, but it's not finished.
It's not finished, but it's impervious, it's going to be impervious pavers.
And there was a prior
Pervious,
approval is
correct.
for that material?
Yes,
Yes. So
Yes.
what we're proposing to change is as you go past the deck at the back of the building, I've created a more gentle turn of that driveway.
And is that the turn that's shown here?
Yes, there's a dashed line, I believe, for the existing line and a harder line for the actual path.
A dashed line for the
You can see
existing?
the dashed line is labeled previously approved
For the
driveway.
existing.
yes,
And now this one, okay,
Correct.
thank you.
yes.
I'm sorry for that confusion.
Can I just piggyback on what you asked, just for clarification purposes?
Yes,
Where that 26.1 dimension line is, right by the existing garage in the back?
Yes,
Do you see that? Okay,
Yes.
and then going back to the relocated shed, is that whole area back there as well? Is that going to be the impervious block driveway?
Yes, that's already been approved by the HPC,
Okay,
both the sheds and the driveway and the garage.
okay, so that large area in the back. Now, it looks like by that relocated shed that there's a, it looks like it might be a door swing or a gate swing. Is there a proposed fence there?
no.
No.
No, there's no swing or,
I
I
I don't know
think,
what
I
that
think,
glitch is.
I
You don't
think
know what
that,
that is? Okay.
I think
just-
that may be just like a planter
Okay.
off the side of the existing shed.
Okay, I just didn't know if we were
actu-
proposing a fence, because that wasn't,
No, actually, that's a tree.
okay,
That's the base of a tree.
okay.
So that's why
We have this.
it's not squared around. There's an existing tree that's by the shed.
Okay.
zoning requirement. Before we go around the room,
I'm-
before we go around the room, you mentioned there was no zoning issues.
No zoning,
As far
so,
as we know, we're fully compliant. with
Compliant.
that.
You have a building height of 40 feet. This is the HPC, not zoning.
Right.
And so I don't want to participate in zoning issues, but I do have a question of what is the current elevation in Cape May,
I mean, what is the current
allowable?
40 feet for this structure, as far as I know?
Well, the current roof is shown at a ridge at about 45 feet above grade, which appears not to meet zoning requirements.
We'll check.
Again, we're not zoning.
I'm just trying to help you guys. I think you're exceeding the zoning requirements in height.
We'll triple check.
Good.
He's got 40. Yeah. So, for sure, tonight, when we go around the room, we'll have to talk about a conceptual approval. Because
Right.
I think that's a problem. And if you don't have to go to zoning, well, then you can come back
Okay.
and review, and we can deal with it. Okay? Ready to go around the room?
Ready?
John, you want to start
Sure.
off?
So it would really help to have a site plan that shows all of the paving clearly marked. For example, there's no paving leading up to the garage that's shown on the rear elevation. So it's really challenging for us to assess what you're intending on the site unless we see it fully drawn. So I would strongly suggest that next time you submit, please bring us a fully labeled and accurate site plan. My biggest problem, which I have to say directly, in my view, violates our standards on page 70, where it specifically states the design of new structure that exceeds the neighboring building's scale in height, width, or massing is not appropriate. So this is a 4-story building. You're calling it 3, but it's 4.
Actually called it 2.5.
Yeah, it's 4. And there's no other 4-story building in the neighborhood. In fact, the little bungalow next door, if you go the house directly to the south on Grant Street, I just did some quick math. The scale of its elevation wall relative to the scale of the elevation wall you're building is about 1/6 of what you are doing in terms of the mass of that wall, which, by the way, is almost an entirely monolithic wall which has some little pieces of roof on top of it. So if I just do this and cover this up, that is one massive, flat, unarticulated wall, 4 stories high, and about 6 times the square footage of the adjacent house.
That's the adjacent house you're talking about, that's the elevation.
I know,
That faces the
but
adjacent
that
house.
elevation is basically the same. It has one porch on it, but essentially, again, if we cover up that roof, there's a little bit of more articulation, but the reality is that that house next door would only come up about this high and only be about that long. So its elevation is about 1/6 the area of what you're drawing here, which tells me that although you may believe you're within the scale of the neighborhood, you're dwarfing that existing house and the other homes in the neighborhood. So I can't really accept, will you let me finish, please?
Sure.
I cannot really accept or in any way support a project of this scale on that site.
Clearly, we value your opinions. That's why we're here. You have selected probably the smallest building in the entire neighborhood to use as that comparison. There are other significantly larger structures within the immediate vicinity, including the
down.
house that is immediately next door, her property. The house that is next to that to the right is also significantly larger. The one building you've centered on is the smallest one in that whole neighborhood.
That
With
is-
all due respect.
No, I totally agree with you. I drove around the neighborhood today looking for anything even close to this scale. There's nothing even close to this scale. So it's, to me, it is not in compliance with our standards, as specifically stated on page 70 and additionally on page 71, in terms of it complying with the character of the neighborhood and the streetscape. So I would, again, strongly suggest you may want to consider tabling this, because I can tell you that I will not support it.
Other comments? John? Other comments, John? Oh, no, I'm done. Lorraine?
Just one quick question, and on the elevations that you had there, it showed the shutters, and I didn't see a spec sheet on the shutters as well, so if you do that, unless you submitted them and I missed it, if you table this, just make sure that you include that as well.
It was not on the list, so I
It's
did
not on the list,
include
I know, and I noticed that as I was looking through this, that I think maybe we need to
glad.
change
We'll be glad to do that.
our application, but
Well, there undoubtedly will have to be a revised materials list based on a lot of the things that are said,
Yeah.
including shutters and other things that are going to change, and maybe subject to additional comments as we go around.
Corbin?
Well, I'm going to pick up on Lorraine's about the shutters. Shutters were built on houses to close a window in. These shutters only cover 1/2 of 1/3 of the window, which makes them inappropriate.
Okay.
You know, they should be fitted so they will close the whole.
So no shutters or appropriately sized shutters.
No, they're not.
I said no shutters
either or.
or appropriately sized
Yeah.
shutters.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes,
or appear operable.
appear to be operable.
Okay.
No decorative shutters.
Or window placement that would have shutters on either side that would be appropriate.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen houses built in the early early 1800s, which have shutters, and they have triple windows where they fold shutters together. So you have, shutters will fold out and cover all 3 windows. That's the appropriate way for shutters.
Anything else, Corbin?
That's it.
Any reason why we couldn't do that, other than
No,
cost for doing that? If we do that, then that's appropriately sized
yeah,
based on your, okay, thank you, sir.
I'm in total agreement with John that this is way oversized for everything in the neighborhood. And I bike that neighborhood so regularly, and I look around, and this is just so way oversized. Yeah, I'm not going to get into small details like shutters and things like that. There's a lot of those things I'm concerned about too. But I think we really have to address the mass of this building in the neighborhood that it's going in. And the only thing that's even close to it is a house that we weren't too happy about that you enlarged before, that also kind of overpowers that neighborhood. You say this is going to be for myself and my family forever and ever. It'll always be a single-family home.
It is.
Say, we've heard a lot of things like that over the years and watched things over time change into all kinds of things. So that's really not a winning argument before any board in Cape May to say.
Okay.
I
I am planning to make it into
what you're going to get.
a family residence of
Yeah.
2 homes next to each other.
Yeah, well, Mr. Gerard in Philadelphia thought he was doing that too, and, you know, it doesn't happen that way. So we have to take what we are putting on and what possibly is the impact.
Well, the DeLulla's home, 2 down, is very large for the neighborhood. So is Progner's home, and they've both been built 10 years ago.
I'm looking at setbacks, landscaping, things like that. I don't see anything that kind of jumps out at you like this. So I'm right along with John, that I
Okay.
just think before we could give, or I or John could agree on all the other elements of design, this thing has to be scaled down. That's all I have.
Pip?
Is your main concern the height of the structure?
I have about 100 little details things, you know, like you're building a beautiful, expensive house, but you want to put vinyl rails on it, you know, that's like the vinyl rails in front of Convention Hall that everybody screamed about when we don't allow vinyl rails in
You didn't
Cape May.
answer my question.
You know,
I'm
yeah.
trying to get a sense of how to adjust the building. So if you don't mind, is your concern the overall size of the building? Is it mostly the height of the building? that
Overall
causes-
size and height and mass appearance on the property. From there, I would go down to the design, the elements of materials on it. You know, I mean, you want to put vinyl siding on this house. Have you seen how many hurricanes have ripped vinyl siding right off of buildings in Cape May? You know, there are far better materials if you really want to build a fine house and the materials blend with historic Cape May. We can't make you do that on a non-contributing, but I'm trying to advise you that the whole project would be better if it's scaled down and it uses materials that also are used on the houses in the historic district.
Thank you, we value your opinion. Thank you.
Pip?
So I sort of think the same thing, that, that it's way, way too tall. And, I mean, I know that, I live right in this neighborhood, so I know this neighborhood pretty well. And for a long time, there were no big houses, and then there became two big houses, right? Two great big houses. And the street is kind of unusual because of the train and the fact that the train went down their side of the street, but it did not go on the other side, which has all historic houses. So I just think that it would be nice if it could be lower, definitely lower. And I can't get a sense, even though I think I know this neighborhood, I can't get a sense of what this house will look placed between your present house and that other giant house on the other side. So that's another thing that would be nice is when you make it, whatever you do to the design, if you could make a picture or some kind of a drawing that would show how this house looks on its lot, next to Judy's house on its lot, next to the other house on its.
The attempt was not to be taller or bigger, but they are very large, and I've lived with them for 10 years.
Yes, of course you have.
Janice?
I really don't have anything to add.
Jim?
Very little to add. And echoing what was said before, smaller and more proportional would be better. I think Pip's suggestion of a broader streetscape where you could actually see the proportions of the houses, we've seen that before. Lets us visualize how big this is relative to those around it. I do recall we've given permission to you to build one that had a pretty tall tower on it, and I think I'm maybe a little less. I think I'm a little more flexible relative to the size, but to me, this is just so far big that it needs to be reduced significantly. And I'm just going to give you one other peeve that I hope will appear in a revised materials list. I don't think that cultured stone veneer has any place in the pillars or the foundation of this structure. We highly favor brick as a material that is much more in keeping with the kind of effect I think you're trying to achieve. So that's my comment on materials. This is going to clearly require a reworking. We can't give this conceptual approval. So if we could go through the tabling, we could do something else. But
We would ask to table the application.
Yeah, I would add, though, when you come back, the elevation here, I'm still struggling with, because it appears to be maybe 48, 46 feet high. I don't, as I said, this is the HPC, it's not zoning. I think you have other problems other than the HPC. At any rate,
The peak of the cupola.
More like
From the 10.
yeah.
well, that's a real incentive to reduce the size. I'll make a motion to table this, subject to the applicant waiving the time period rules, if that's acceptable.
Yes.
Is acceptable?
Yes, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
And your
Thank you.
Okay.
Next order of business is Feeney, 300 Howard Street, Block 1065, Lot 10. It's not rated. We're going to discuss porch, windows, siding, roofing. driveway, and HVAC.
Strange little house. Set way back there. Hardly ever even see it. Good evening. My name is Gary Finney. I am the owner of 300 Howard Street, and we are here in front of you tonight, asking you to look at our plans submitted for an addition to the existing porch. The existing porch now is approximately 12 feet by 8 feet, and we are looking to expand the porch across the entire front of the house, which would make it about 30 feet, and a 3-foot extension to exit down the side. So it's a total of 33 feet wide, and would be 12 feet, 33 feet long and 12 feet wide. In doing that, we would also ask for your approval to remove the existing vinyl siding, windows, shutters, roof, and bring it up to par with what the committee is looking for. And that is why we're here tonight, and we're looking for your feedback and possibly your approval.
Thank you. Before we go around the room, the reason that this is here before us tonight is that normally we approve things in review, but I was mixed about this. It's a pretty straightforward application, but I think when you're dealing with the entire front of a house in the historic district, it should come before the full commission. It shouldn't be dealt with in review. So rather than go around the room, I would open this to, anyone, the members, have a question or an observation about this application?
Well, I was out looking at it on Sunday, and I think this is something where we're going to improve a house that is not the most attractive house on Howard Street. One of the problems we have is we don't normally allow parking on the front of the house. But this house was originally was a 2-car garage. Somebody put an apartment over this garage, then built out the front. And there's no place else for them to put parking. And I think that the family wants to upgrade it and make it look more attractive as best they can. This is, looking at you're going to go upgrade to hardy plank for the siding, as I recall. So, a lot of upgrades on this that would make it.
We're going to remove all the existing treated lumber for the stairs, and we will use Trek, and all the new treated lumber will be covered in the Trek board, so it will be fitting with what is expected, as I understand it, from the HARB. It's going to be hardy plank. There'll be timberline shingles, high definition, Anderson 400 series windows. And it is our belief that it is in what the committee is looking for. And if it's not, you'll tell us, and we'll change.
You probably have already heard. We're not real bashful. Any other questions before this applicant?
Why is it you felt that you needed a porch of such huge size?
The porch is going to go across the entire front of the house.
Right, but come,
So would you be talking about the length or the
Depth,
width?
depth.
The width, 12 feet is what we thought would be appropriate.
size for a porch. That was our thinking. The house is very small.
Maybe that's
a lot.
Yeah.
And so in bringing that porch out another 12 feet, it doesn't even come close to getting towards the street where the other properties are.
So there is no front yard parking problem here?
There's parking for 3 cars, even with the porch.
But not in the front yard, in a driveway?
No, in the driveway. There's an existing driveway now.
Which is in the front yard.
Which is
Yes, it's in the
yard.
front yard, yes.
And it's an existing condition. It's been that way for,
Well, our family purchased the house in 1966. So that's how long it's been like that.
Any other questions or observations on this application?
I do have one.
I just, go ahead.
Yep, please.
No, I was just gonna say, so you're gonna put this porch on the front, and then you're gonna put the sliding glass doors where these 3 windows are.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then up above, you're gonna keep the 3 little windows and the 1 window, the 1 pair of windows on the side, but the middle pair of windows you're gonna replace with 1 window?
Yes, it's a narrower window to allow for the roof line to come in.
Oh, okay, all right.
Other questions?
I have one. So this is, from my perspective, a significant improvement. I do have a question. The stairs that you're showing coming up to the house are actually narrower than the width of the front door. And is that intentional, or are they just not drawn?
Well, I think the stairs are 4 feet wide, and the door is 3 feet.
Okay, they're drawn significantly smaller than that? And I'm suggesting that you might find it much more pleasing.
If I make it, what size do you think would be
Oh,
appropriate?
just more proportionally wider. So if you look at the other houses that have the front porches facing the street,
So
typically.
you think like 5 or 6 feet?
I think you'll probably find it much more desirable.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only other question I have is the cutout in the middle bay.
Yes.
Right? It's odd, right? And I'm just wondering about it because that, it might save you some money and might be more appropriate in the neighborhood if that was just a beam that went all the way across. So I'm wondering if there's a particular reason why that cutout is that shape.
Well, we're planning on retiring here, and my wife is not here, unfortunately, and this was her dream, to have this little, are you speaking of the little A here in front?
All I'm talking about is just in the middle bay. See this little cutout right here?
Yeah, that's what
As opposed to that beam coming all the way across, or, you know, there are 2 houses on the street that actually have an arch over that. So
Well, we could do an arch if you would.
I'm just saying it might be, historically, it would fit in more with the character of the neighborhood.
If you want an arch, we'll put an arch.
I won't deny it if you don't do that. I'm just suggesting you might find it more desirable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
John, do you want to include that as something to have it come back and review for approval with an arch?
This is seeking final, so you'll need to add conditions for.
Would we be able to approve that in review?
Yeah, we could give them
Yeah.
final approval
Yeah.
subject to the arch being approved by the review committee.
Be great.
I will
Motion-
make that motion.
I will second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next application is Lord, 1239 New York Avenue, Block 1132, Lot 27. It's a contributing property and a garage demolition. And then that'll be followed by the same address on a contributing property, in addition, roof, dormer, siding, windows, new garage, and foundation repairs.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record and for full clarification, I have met with the clients, and like in many other instances where you, John, Zach, me, and others have met with clients before, just to try to give them some advice on what's happened in the past, the neighborhood they're in, 4 squares on New York Avenue. I have not seen these plans until these have come, but I do plan to stay with a very open mind and be able to vote on the application unless the attorney has a different opinion.
No, I think it's
Okay.
First things first is the demolition, the 9 points. Oh, we need to know who you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Anthony Monzo, attorney for the applicant. I'll have the participants introduce themselves. Tom Lord.
Yes, thank you. I'm Tom Lord, and I'd also like to introduce my wife, Gigi Lord, in the back. We're the owners of 1239 New York Avenue. And Tony.
Thank you.
We also have
I'm Catherine Lorenz, architect.
Will Harrislack, architect.
Thank you.
So this first application is for the demolition of a detached garage that was not part of the original structure. Ms. Lorenz, in her presentation or in her materials, went through the 9 points, but I think we'll have her go through and provide a further explanation, taking each one and supporting the position for demolition. So, Ms. Lorenz, you want to go through that, please?
Again, you only need to concern yourself with the first 7 points. This is not a relocation.
Okay. I just want to preface this by saying that this is a complicated application, this being the first part of it. And the garage is on Trenton. Okay, the main house is facing New York. The house, if we look at page 11, page 11 is an old photograph showing the Peter Shields Inn and the different homes that were built at this time. The arrow is pointing to the house on the corner of New York and Trenton. And I'm directing you to this picture, and you might need a magnifying glass, but I just want you to notice that. Aha, okay, I have them all over the house now. There is no garage when this house was first built, which was somewhere around 1910. So if I go through the 9 points, or the 7 points, is it historic, architectural, cultural, aesthetic significance? I'm saying that the garage is not historic to the house and has no aesthetic significance. The second one is its current and potential use for these purposes currently permitted by this chapter or for the use proposed. This was designed probably around 1930 or 40. Cars were smaller then. It is very small to be used as a garage. So the permitted use as and also I want to note that this building is in structural failure. If you were to look at the building itself, it lists to one side. There is no foundation on this building. It was built on dirt. There's dirt on the inside, except for a little like concrete for the vehicle wheels. So in my opinion, as an architect, this building is in structural failure and needs significant work and/or repair. And I don't even know if it's possible to repair this building. So that is one of the reasons why we're suggesting demolition. its importance to the municipality and to the extent of which its historical or architectural value is such that its removal would be detrimental to the integrity of the historic property or district and the public interest. This garage was not built at the time of the house, so I don't see that it has the historic value to the existing home. Number 4, the extent to which it is such old, unusual, or uncommon design, craftsmanship, texture, or material that it could not be reproduced or could be reproduced only with great difficulty. I'm not sure I understand the whole thing, but this building could easily be reproduced. And in the next application that we're going to see, we're going to try to design a garage that is more in keeping with the style of the house. This looks like an add-on. It does not follow the original design of the house. So I don't know which one I was up to. I think number 5. The extent to which its retention would increase property values, promote business, create new positions. I don't see how that really affects this as a resident. I think, quite honestly, the demolition of this building is going to increase the property value of this house. The impact of its removal upon the historic district. There are about 20, I think, or 24 of these homes located around New York Avenue, and each one either has a shed in the back or has a new garage that was built recently. I don't think there's any one garage in any of this neighborhood that matches. They're all just sort of add-on pieces, and that's what I'm saying that this garage is. And then number 7 is the structural soundness and integrity of the building. And just so that you can see that I'm not, I believe I have a picture of the garage, and it shows, it's sort of sunk into the ground.
I think if you look at page 10, you can see the
Yeah.
back.
And that's right, page 10. And quite honestly, the fact that it's standing right now is a miracle. We get some heavy winds and this thing is going down.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Grant the application for demolition of the garage.
Well, believing that we should grant this permit for demolition before the garage falls down by itself, I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Testa. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson-Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next order of business, same address, same group, for a addition and roof, dormers, siding, windows, a new garage, and foundation repairs.
Mr. Chairman, this one, we are seeking conceptual approval. We need to file an application with the zoning board to address some variances, but we wanted to present it to the Historic Preservation Commission first. Again, Ms. Lorenz will go through the plans, the materials, and so forth, but I first wanted to ask Tom Lord to just state his vision for this home and the reasons for what he wants to do this, why he wants to do this project.
Thank you, Tony. Great to meet you and great to be here. It's an exciting time for Gigi and I. It's something we've been actually looking forward, something we've actually been looking forward to for a long time. 1239 is a special place in our family. It's been in the family for 4 generations. In the picture you saw previously, when my great-grandfather, William Montgomery, owned the house, you'll see that we were only house in the block, and there was nothing behind us. It was around 1911 or so. So it's been a family a long time, a lot of special memories. And like my parents, Jack and Judy Lord, Gigi and I have a dream of spending our retirement years at 1239. Unfortunately for my parents, they had some issues health-wise and could not deal with the steps at a certain point. And when they reached that point in 2009, Gigi and I were fortunate enough to be able to buy the house. And they moved out into a single-family home. So, preparing for our retirement years at Cape May at 1239, or aging in place, as they say, is the main reason and driver for this renovation. Includes the addition of the elevator, which I know we have a lot more years until retirement. I've had a few instances already where I could have used an elevator. I just had my hip replaced last month, so going down that path. We appreciate your time and consideration, and we hope you find our project plans are reasonable and are not only making improvements to the streetscape, but also the changes we're proposing are much more conforming with the HPC guidelines and requirements than it is today. We believe these improvements will allow us to fulfill our dream of retiring in our family home in Cape May. With the improvements and condition of the home, we allow for the home to be enjoyed for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to, I'm going to go through the booklet, not every single page. This is a complicated project. There's a lot of moving parts. And as was stated, we're going for conceptual approval first. The cover picture was taken in 1972, showing, I believe this is Tom.
Hurricane Agnes.
Is it you in the picture?
No.
Anyway, it shows that, it does show that that area can flood. And aging in place is really a aspect of architecture that I have been working on a lot. And an elevator is a difficult mechanical device to add to a historic home. And we took a lot of time to put an elevator in that the owners could access almost every floor. So that would be the basement level, and I'm going to go through all of the plans and elevations. The first floor and the second floor. It was not possible to make the elevator go to the third floor, but the owners have agreed that that is, as long as they can have access to the first and second floors. And I think that with the American Disabilities Act being put into law over 20 years ago, everyone has a right to be able to access their home. So with that said, I want to go over page 3, because page 3 sort of crystallizes all the things that we're looking to do on this project. The existing residence is a 2.5-story home built around 1909, 1911. The plan to renovate this house for the current owners by designing for aging in place and for the family's future generation. Currently, there is existing vinyl that will be replaced with wood cedar hand-dipped shingles. All windows, with the exception of the front windows, will be replaced. For now, we're calling out Andersen Woodwright windows. I would like to go over the design before we get into all of the specifics about windows and materials. The 2 windows in the front are original to the house, and those will be kept. They are wood, and they will be repaired. A new window will be added along the rear and also on the side to match the original style of the house. The front porch, the front deck will be repaired or replaced. The balcony on the front is almost a danger to walk on. A new wood door with side lights will be provided at the front. All brick, this has a brick front, brick steps, brick piers. All brick will be repointed or repaired. The roof will be replaced with architectural dimensioned asphaltic shingles as per existing roof. Will was able to get his camera up into the crawl space, and it appears from what he saw, there was plywood. There was no little purlings for any wood shingles. All the trim and soffits, the rafter tails, the fascia, the trim around the windows, the doors and elsewhere will be wood to match. At the rear of the residence, an addition is proposed to accommodate an elevator and the required space to maneuver for wheelchair access. This is to include a ramp that will go down to the cellar level, which will be built with brick pavers to match the house siding. Planting will be added as buffer. We will go over the plan briefly so that you can see how we intend to enter this elevator. The existing vinyl lattice at the deck and in the front porch and the HVAC equipment is to be replaced with cedar at 50% openings with perpendicular spacing. The dormers will be enlarged slightly, approximately 1 foot in each side, to accommodate the bedroom that's on the 3rd floor. Right now, when you walk up to the 3rd floor, if you're 5 feet or under, it's fine. But if you're any taller, you would hit your head trying to get into the bedroom area. And then lastly, we propose to build a new garage. The current garage, as we stated, is collapsing. The new garage will be provided with the same materials as the house. We will replicate the garage doors. We will replicate a dormer on the garage to match the house. And there are 2 reasons why we want to leave the garage where it is. I know that you don't take, zoning is not part of your thing here, but there's a crepe myrtle that is planted adjacent to the garage. And that crepe myrtle was planted in memory of a family member who died many years ago. And it's a nice, big, beautiful tree. So we want to keep that tree. In order to keep that tree and to provide a new garage, we have to put the garage in the same location.
You can actually see that on the cover of the demolition application where the creek myrtle is.
So the next thing that I think is so crucial to understand what we're doing is if you went to page 19, I have inserted some pullouts. And I think this gets to I think this really describes what we're doing. And again, it was really hard to design an elevator so it doesn't look like a shaft. The elevator is at the rear of the house, and if you look at the existing rear elevation, you can see the existing deck, the stairs on the left. There's a little bump out for a kitchen that had been approved addition many years ago, and there's a pair of sliding doors. There is no dormer on the rear of the house. There are 3 dormers, the front and the 2 sides, but none on the rear. Now we look at the proposed rear elevation. There's an elevator in there, and you can't even see that it's there. I think that the addition is not currently in line with the building. There is a difference between where the existing house and where the addition is. We'll show you that better in plan. And you can also see, coming from the left in dotted lines, where the ramp goes down, it goes down to the elevator level. There will be planting all along there, so that when you're coming from Trenton Avenue to the beach, that would be covered. But any of the retaining wall by this ramp would be made out of brick to match the house. If we went to go to sketch number 2, sketch number 2 is a partial plan. We're going to be doing more renovations on the interior of the house, but I wanted to focus on the essence of what we're doing on the exterior. So on the left side, we have the existing deck, which is in gray. You can see where the existing kitchen and existing dining room. So now we go over to the right-hand side. What we've done is we've pushed the kitchen wall out and the dining room wall out, so we are able to get an elevator to the left of the kitchen. This elevator can be accessed from the cellar level. You come up to the first floor. It takes you out to the dining room. The stairs on the right are in the same location as they were for the original house, except they've been pushed back into the backyard. Everything else on the deck, with the exception of an AC unit, is the same. So we've just pushed the house out. If we go to sketch number 3, so again, this is along Trenton Avenue now. I'm focusing on the elevator addition. On the right side is the existing house as it is now. There's a one-story bump out. And what we've done is we've taken this one story and pushed it out and then gone up. You can see the dormer on the Trenton Avenue side. All 4 dormers will match. But the existing dormer on the left side, right now there are replacement windows in there. You can tell that there was a half-round window. We are suggesting to put in a real half-round window again and new windows. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the dormer coming out. If we go to sketch number 4, sketch number 4 shows the second floor. The second floor, you can see the roof on the left-hand side of where the kitchen is. And now what we have done is we have, on the right-hand side, pushed the elevator towards the back of the house, and we have a door that leads to a central hallway. On the right-hand side, we've created a little office space, which would be over the kitchen, so that we have one flat wall on the rear of the house. We have added another bathroom where we put a new window on the left-hand side. But I think that's more incidental than the bulk of the work, which is at the rear for the elevator. If we go to sketch number 5, we have increased some of the habitable area on the 3rd floor by enlarging the dormers approximately a foot on each side. We've also provided a dormer in the rear, and we are able to get a little bathroom in there for a guest on the 3rd floor. There is no elevator entrance on the 3rd floor. So the 3rd floor the elevator only goes from the cellar, 1st floor, 2nd floor. There was no way to design this elevator so that it would look in sync with the building. And the owner has agreed not to access the 3rd floor if they need to use an elevator. And then sketch number 6, finally, is the front of the house. Now this restoration is a complete restoration. All of the wood siding, the vinyl is coming off. We're going to have all new wood siding. All of the brick on the front is being repointed and or replaced. The railing is got to be replaced on the front deck. The two front windows on the left-hand side that I mentioned have some beautiful glass on the top. All of that is staying. There is a balcony. It's funny because reading about the history of these buildings, there was, I think there were 24 that were all built the same. And when they were built, the community, they were all built the same, and the community was up in arms about this. So they made each one of these houses change the front just a little. So some of them have like a little balcony like this one has. Some of them have 3 windows. Some of them have 4 windows. So we're replacing and repairing the balcony that exists. Let me tell you, it's like I didn't want to walk on it. We're going to put new railing to match the porch. We're proposing a new front door. Currently, the front door is a door with a single side light. We'd like to get some more light and air into the living room. And I think this is still keeping with the character of the building. So this little pullout here, I think, goes over the nuts and bolts of what we're asking for conceptual approval. And then finally, it'll be in that other staple pack of drawings, the last one, and it's P3. P3. And P3 shows a proposed new garage. We're proposing the garage in the same footprint. It would fit like a Mini Cooper or a compact car. Since this is going to be a full-time residence, we're proposing 2 stories so that we could have storage on the second floor with a pull-down ladder. And I think the elevation, the proposed front elevation, which is right in the center, shows the new dormer that we're adding on the second floor area storage. We're reproducing the carriage house type of front doors. We're putting in rafter tails that the existing house has. It would have all of the same wood siding, brick at the foundation wall. And due to the fact that it's right up against the lot line, the rear side must be fire rated and not have any windows. So that is our plans and ideas in a nutshell, and we are opened for questions unless, Tony, you have something.
I just wanted you to, and Mr. Becker had pointed out the standards on page 71. May want to just touch.
Yes.
May want to
Yes,
just touch on them in advance of
Okay.
some questions about.
See, I have the books when they used to give them out. You don't have to print them now.
Must know somebody.
But there'll be a new one, so.
All right.
She's been around for.
Yeah, I've been around a little while. 71. For new additions, should be located and designed to minimally affect the perception of the original structure from the public right-of-way. I don't know that that's necessary, but additions should be located on the rear elevation of the historic building. This is a corner lot, so there are, in theory, 2 rears, but we're following the profile of the building on the Trenton Avenue side, which will require a variance. The new addition should clearly be different from the historic structure as far as, I remember you going over this with another applicant. You don't want it to just line up. You want to see where the historic building is and where the addition to the building is. And we really tried to do that here. An addition should be smaller in scale than the original building. We're not bigger than the original building. We're not very small. but we're not bigger. And was there another item that,
No, that, I think you hit on three.
okay, okay. So,
Thank you. Before we go around the room, the garage, you're showing a condenser,
well,
air conditioning the garage?
yes, it's going to be a storage garage on the second floor. So we want to be able to condition the space, whether it's we have one of those Mitsubishi units. I know, like, my clothes have gotten all moldy by just putting them in my old garage. So I recommend when people have storage that they have conditioned space.
Yeah, it's there. It's
A little-
just, it's normally air-conditioned space to make it living space. And it's not intended as living space.
No, we have a pull-down ladder. We do not have a permanent stair.
Well,
Would that
I
not
can-
make it easier for storage as people age?
Well, I mean, we want to get a car in there, too. So, you know, that's when the kids, I guess,
Yeah,
are going to have to get the boxes.
Yeah, we're selling another house and combining into one, so we have a lot of stuff.
I mean,
And kids and hopefully grandkids someday, so.
You do have a
Sort of a shallow
basement, right? Full basement in the house?
We have a full basement,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's temperature controlled.
convenience sake.
You're saying a hard staircase for
Yeah.
convenience
And
sake.
I had a garage on, house I had on Madison Avenue, which I had was 2 floors, but it was considerably bigger than this, but still getting up to the second floor without the pull-down stairs is very difficult.
Without enlarging, I guess, the garage, that may be a difficult thing to accomplish with this. Keeping it, he's keeping it in the same footprint. That crepe myrtle tree is preventing it from becoming
Yeah.
wider. If you move it out farther, you're in setbacks. So the best option, I think, was to just keep it in place. And to get a car in there and then a hard staircase may be very hard.
Before we go around the room, I think I read on your materials list, it was Anderson 400 windows.
I think it says Woodwrights, right? I think it says Anderson Woodwrights, which is the
They're
same.
clad.
You know better than that. Clad wood.
Okay, there apparently had been approval when the kitchen addition was done about 10 or 12 years ago, and Woodwright windows had been approved for that addition. And the owner felt that the new windows could be the same that had been
That
approved.
product has changed, though. The product used to be a primed wood, and then it changed to a clad. And a contributing property clad is not appropriate. And so, we'll go around the room, but I think that's going to be a real challenge. It's a contributing property, and you're doing all this work. It's time to have.
Can I just say, we're not really hung up on that. The reason is because we have vinyl now, and we thought that Woodwright would be more contributing than its current state.
Well, we would like to see them all changed.
Yeah.
So,
We're keeping the front windows, which are wood, the front bay windows. yeah.
but I mean, when you're doing a major renovation in a contributing property, we don't insist on everything being upgraded to our existing standard. On the other hand, when you're doing an extensive renovation like this, we want to start.
I'm very pleased with what I'm looking at. Just a few questions. You have Palladian windows now, in the top floor and even in the garage. Palladian windows were usually used to say, we can afford these, which means they didn't go in the garage. So I certainly wouldn't insist on a Palladian window to decorate the top. But in those pictures, you're showing one plain piece of glass with no sash work, and they also should have a sash pattern that goes with the curvature of the glass. And if you are switching to one of the companies that probably you'll be hearing about that make all-wood windows, that is much more readily available to get in with a sash pattern than you're going to find with Anderson 400. So that would be a correction, just have those Palladians also have sash pattern in them that goes along with the rest of it. Catherine, you know what I mean, I'm sure in that.
Yes, and I'm certain that when we were putting this together, that these half-round windows would more than likely be custom.
Your railing on the front porch, what height is that going to be?
Same.
Which is what, 30?
We're not changing the front porch.
36 inches,
36 inches.
yes.
With 36 inches, if you bulk up the size of the top rail, what you're talking about maybe being mahogany, and even give it a varnish finish, which will look really nice, you can then shorten up the balustrades a little bit so it doesn't look as much like a jail. Now, you have definitely picked up on our standard, no more than a 3-inch spacing, and real 2-inch. You've heard me enough talk about keeping up with that size element that was so true to these houses. But I would just suggest that you try to get a little stronger top rail on it.
I think we're talking about the back porch with the mahogany. The front porch is going to remain exactly intact.
Well, we would,
Oh, I thought you were replacing the front
We're-
door. Didn't you
we're
say you
going to
had
put a
re-
new railing on the front because most of that is rotted,
Yeah.
too.
Right.
Yeah, well, they should match the front and the back.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
But you understand what I'm saying. I'm trying to just make it get the weight and feeling of sturdiness that houses of that era had.
Okay.
And you can see those in all the old houses in the neighborhood, except ones that got away with putting up vinyl as final.
Anything else, Tom?
Nope.
Pip?
No, no, it looks very nice to me.
Janice?
Yeah, I agree, it looks good.
Jim?
This is so good, an addition, that I thought I was going to have problems when I first saw things like adding the dormers and putting those things on the side. But when I look at it, it really doesn't change the proportion of the facade. I get really worried when I start seeing big things stuck on the front of these houses. And when the eye looks at the increased size of the windows and the dormers and the one in back, it really all fits in for me, as well as the addition in the back as you come off, even though it isn't directly separated. And I also want to praise you for having the inspection of going under and looking at the roof to see that we didn't have original materials, because it's been, as you know, a really sore subject here about how much inquiry you make to determine that the roof had been replaced and you have plywood and you're going over that with asphalt. So that's an extra kudo for doing that. It's too bad somebody mentioned the windows, because I was going to talk about no cladding and painting on the windows. I think this is an excellent product and an excellent design. I could easily support this for conceptual approval.
Thank you. Corbin?
They've covered everything I was.
Lorraine? John?
Thank you for such a comprehensive submission. It's so nice to have everything we need to look at. You almost didn't even need to make a presentation because it's all there. So thank you for that. The only question I had initially was about the increasing the size of the dormers, but then looking at the 20 or so cousins that there are, dormers are different sizes. So it's, as you said, the community wanted them each to be a little different, so.
These houses were part of the, as you may remember, the East Cape May real estate development plot. And it's interesting you mentioned the changes in the balconies. Well, also were changes in the dormers.
Yeah.
To differentiate the one house that kind of looked like the other, because they all were sold in New Jersey and New York Avenue approximately the same time. My guess is they started changing dormers just like they changed balconies to give some change in the design, so they all didn't look like the cookie cutter houses of 1910. And that's just a feature of them. They have so much character to these houses, and it's really good to see that you're preserving that with this renovation.
Thank you. And I would not add, but I support everything that was said. And Catherine, you come before us prepared. and we do appreciate it, so thank you. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I would move,
Grant conceptual approval for the project as presented. I mean, with the exception of the windows and other notes that we've given.
I'll second your motion, Corbin. Maybe it'll even get better when it comes in for final approval.
What?
Maybe it'll even get better when it comes in for final approval. I'll second the motion.
Motion by Ms.
You know, one way you could differentiate the addition, is you put a wooden strip down the,
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Testa. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell? Mr. Cogswell?
yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is Uffelman, 10 North Street, Block 1021, Lot 2. This is a contributing property and looking for artificial turf. I thought-
Good evening, how are you?
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Grab the mic, would you please?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You are?
I'm Amanda Adams, and this is my husband, Daniel. We are the owners of 10 North Street, and we are requesting permission to keep our artificial grass in the back of our home. Originally, we had put artificial turf in the front of our home on the side of the driveway. And the Historic Commission told us, you know, it is affecting the streetscape, and truthfully, we agreed with that. So we did remove the turf from the driveway. However, we do have the artificial turf in the back, and we are requesting to keep it because we don't feel that it affects the streetscape at all. We also have a fence, so that covers the artificial turf, and we would just really like to keep it.
Did we hear this before?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Tell me.
That's the right answer.
Part.
I stopped by during the comments to ask why it wasn't approved in review, because I thought it was confusing since it wasn't affecting the streetscape and no one can see it since it was in our private backyard. It's not like on the side of the house. It's blocked by a fence and nobody can see it.
Yeah,
think this-
when this was reviewed, there was some artificial turf in the front.
Correct, and we removed it, yes. Mhm,
Right?
mhm.
Correct.
Removed
Yes,
it.
yep.
Yep.
So, okay. Rather than go around the room, question is, does anyone have any questions for
This will be
this
a
applicant?
first. Artificial turf.
I actually, I mean, I think this is a little tricky because it's real clear you should not have it in the front yard, and you don't, right?
Correct.
I'm sorry, can I ask everyone to speak into your mics? It's getting a little hard to hear.
What?
Your mic is really far away.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, I don't know how anyone could see this in the back. I mean, you would have to be on the second, you'd have to be up high in these
Correct.
neighboring properties before you'd ever see this in the back.
Correct.
And so from that standpoint, I think that it's fine.
Thank you.
But I also think we're going to have that this should not be interpreted as a universal rule that anyone can have an artificial turf in their backyard. I just think you have an unusual circumstance, maybe not that unusual, but I mean, nobody can see this. There's no way anyone could see.
Thank you.
So, so that would be my comment, but I don't know how we word this in such a way that other people who might want to do this, you know, don't
We can
make
word that in the motion.
Okay, all right, then I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
Anyone, other comment?
May I ask, because I'm failing to remember, why is it that you have to have it?
Again.
or think you have to have?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple reasons. One, we have a small amount of grass, and to have somebody park on North Street and have to mow it every week would be very difficult. And also, we have dogs and only a small amount of grass. So if they were going on that small amount of grass, it would be dead very, very quick. So even if we put real grass there, it would just be gray grass right away. So for our personal use, it would be much more effective to keep the turf.
What's the permeability of the artificial grass?
It's pretty incredible. It's 100% permeable.
100%,
Yeah, they call it pet grass.
But weeds can't grow up through it.
I mean, they come and go. You got to go and yank them.
And windstorms cannot rip this up.
So far, no.
Anchor it down.
Yeah, we do anchor it down. Yeah, we take.
You see, this is new to us.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Other comments?
So I do have some ecological concerns with regard to artificial turf, particularly since it does nothing to improve the health of the soil, and it's all an interconnected system of healthy soil and healthy insects, all of which need to be really fecund and alive for a healthy microclimate. And there's one other issue, and that is the runoff can carry some of these polypropylene fibers into the ocean pretty easily with runoff, because I don't think it is 100%. If you did, based on what I've seen, the runoff coefficient of a typical turf grass is really interesting. It's about 75%. So because of the layers of the drainage layer that is in this particular brand, which, by the way, is one of, from what research I was able to do, it's one of the better ones in terms of the amount of percolation of water that can actually infiltrate into the ground. I think for me, it's not an aesthetic issue, it's an ecological issue. That's all.
And I respect that 100%. I think the issue at hand, though, is the fact that we weren't allowed to have it because it affected the streetscape. And with that matter at hand, I feel that it doesn't affect the streetscape.
Yeah.
I don't think it's,
I understand.
but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
But at the same, we get to save all that mowing and gas.
It's true, too. It's a very small area.
It is very
Yes,
small.
but its
very
useful life is only about 10 to 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So once if you look at the studies of the full life cycle assessment of the 13 environmental impact indicators, it's not really a reduction in carbon emissions, for example.
Okay.
Yep.
Other
Other
comments?
I'm still a little puzzled. I mean, I'm sorry, Bobby, you were going to.
I was just going to, go ahead.
I was going to say, in having jurisdiction over major landscaping and landscaping, which we do, there have been some instances where we've required the adoption of a landscaping plan, and I'm kind of concerned as this is a whole new dimension. If the stuff wears out in 10 years, I mean, what happens then? Are you going? There's no way of knowing what's going to be replaced with. You kind of think of natural turf; it just continues to grow. You feed it; it's a natural process. I completely agree that there is no adverse streetscape effect because you've got it. It's fenced. You'd need a drone to come up and see what it was. I'm just a little perplexed by the problems of maintenance, and by the issue of phrasing this so we don't have everybody in town suddenly erecting a fence and those who want to put in artificial turf and contributing properties.
The problem, though, is for the HPC. This may or may not be a big problem for Cape May, and may be a problem for each of us individually. But the HPC is charged with streetscape and design and elements that the argument that's being presented tonight, I think, is beyond the scope of the Historic Preservation Commission. So perhaps this is something the city should look at. And we have a representative from City Council here. And so we can ask that representative to carry this issue back to City Council. But I think, while I have share the same concerns that John brings up, I think this falls within the scope of the HPC, and we should stay in that lane and have city council worry about going forward. So, do I have a motion?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. I never comment on applications. And if I'm going to say something now, it's because I have a concern, and nothing to do with historic appropriateness and, or any of that, but I just happened to read this past week in the Philadelphia papers, there's been a study of some health hazards that occur because of artificial turf. There's been many Philadelphia athletes who've had fatal issues because they played on this artificial turf. It got real hot, it released chemicals. I'm not a chemist, I'm not suggesting that there's any problem with this particular material. I don't know. I know it says no lead, and I know it says it uses polyurethane. I don't know whether this is unsafe or not. I'm just suggesting that whatever material you do use, that you thoroughly research it.
Sure.
See whether have been any issues with that particular product or way it's made for your own health.
Oh, no, we appreciate that, absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
That's all.
But so far, what's been said, though, is we have jurisdiction to pass on this application.
I have,
Yes.
If I'm understanding correctly what you said.
I believe the jurisdiction is in this issue is streetscape, and the materials used, we can pass on. And it's not that it isn't an environmental issue, it's just that we should stay in the lane that we're in, and Lorraine has offered to take it back to city council for.
Well, I think
Can I
that.
ask a question, though? There have been times when someone has asked to build a porch on the back of a contributing structure and use materials that we don't usually approve. And in my memory, it seems like we've said no, that we've required that they stay with wood or brick. And isn't artificial turf sort of like a material that we wouldn't approve? I mean, it is plastic.
That's a fair point. I don't know. I mean, we have approved some things in the back of contributing properties. That's a fair point. I don't know.
It makes it more difficult. I guess I could support it for this limited purpose, but I think that makes it all the more important that the city take a broader view of how this should be seen in the overall scope, because you just know that if this happens here, we're going to have some additional applications along this line, and we're going to have to handle them ad hoc instead of having a city policy that addresses it.
There's nothing in our standards right now, though, that allow us to turn down something like this, because it was never even mentioned in 1971 when the standards came out. It didn't exist.
Right.
But, as is pointed out, I know you're developing a family, and kids are going to roll around in the backyard. So, yeah, that sounds like a pretty genuine concern that you probably want to look into.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been mentioned that there's a 10-year shelf life, 12-year life for this. Now, how do you dispose of this?
So,
When you take it up, you got a contractor that takes it up, does it go into a landfill where it will last forever?
so I would suggest the 12-year life is probably for heavier use than we are using. And I would probably call my contractor and let him deal with it, and then tell him to put new one in.
Your dog gets out there, starts scratching in it, they can't, and would this possibly have effect on your dogs? I mean, this is another consideration. I mean, personally, I would not put artificial turf in my backyard.
I have a question, and I think it's more of maybe a legal question or a point of reference. So if we're talking about a 10-year shelf life, what happens when it is removed? Is that another application back here
Yes.
again?
Yeah, that's why I was talking about landscaping plans that we
Right,
had for
and that,
long
yeah,
term.
it ties into what you were saying as well. I don't know, it's probably
No, it would have to come back.
similar to a porch addition. If they're going to replace it, then they have to
Yeah,
come
if,
back
like,
again, I guess.
For example, if your front door rots and you need to replace it, we have to come here. We understand that.
Yeah. So,
It
so
would
if
be
you-
the same as if there's rotten wood on our porch and we had to replace it, we'd come back, or we'd submit it for review, and if obviously things change by
Which-
then, we'd,
which is why in making a motion, I would condition it on returning for the replacement of it.
Yeah.
If you want,
Other questions or observations from the group?
No.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we give approval to this application in final form, subject to the condition that when the lifespan of this material requires its replacement, that you return to the HPC for further review.
I'll second that. We'll all be here 10 years from now.
we're looking forward to it.
It's the precedent I'm more worried about than the 10 years.
Motion made by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell? Mr. Cogswell?
No.
Thank you.
And just from the standpoint of, partially, it's an environmental question too. So, I mean, grass is better for the environment.
Sure.
Got to push more.
Ms. Wilson Strodick?
I can't approve it, sorry.
No?
No.
Mr. Testa?
Yes, with reluctance.
Mr. Becker?
No.
Thank you.
So what did that,
So where are we?
the total?
I think it was 4-3.
4-3.
4 to 3.
Approval?
Yeah.
Is this going to be the colors of your house?
That is our
That is our house, right now.
Yeah. That's the colors now?
Yeah,
Yes.
right now, that's existing.
It's been this color for 30 years.
No, not light pink.
That was before Tom had the cataract surgery.
Thank you.
It looks like you had extra paint from doing the baby's room. Tackled the outside.
It's
You don't
getting,
like the
it's
pink?
getting a little late.
Well, they
for-
refreshed the paint.
I know, in all fairness, people
It's
really do
very
love it, and it's,
You wouldn't believe how many people take pictures of our home.
it actually-
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's great.
And that's what's important. You know.
no, and people do, like, they take a lot of, on social media, people are always commenting, so we do appreciate you
So we
all.
survived?
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
We appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Excuse
Next
me.
order of business is Bremer, 1035 Washington Street, Block 1112, Lot 11.01. This is a non-contributing house, and they're proposing rear addition dormers.
This house isn't that old.
No, it is not. My name is Pamela Fine. I'm with Fine Architecture. I am here on behalf of my clients, Kevin and Jill Bremer, who unfortunately could not be here but really wanted to. So I'm going to try my best to represent them. So this house is not.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just would note that the application has no agency here other than the owners. So we're going to have to take the representation that Pam is fully authorized to do this. My application shows a blank in terms of notice of hearing date contact. There are the owners. There's just no evidence of your authority to act here.
Plans we're looking at have her on her.
I understand that.
Fine.
I'm just-
Yeah, but-
we've had some agency issues before with people who have presented and then the owners have disavowed their actions
Exactly.
because they
Yes,
weren't shown as authorized. I would point that out for those who want to.
No, I think it's a good point, and we have had problems in the past with
Not that that would happen in this case.
Yeah, so
With you.
they intended
It's
to
not
be
that
here.
it's not that we're presuming
Yeah.
you're unauthorized,
Yeah.
but it's just one of those things when you fill out the application, there's a terrific place to put down the people who are authorized to speak to it.
So in truth, I never have my information on either of these applications for any project I've ever been here for.
Right,
so
but
this is
our
news to
rules
me.
also
No, but you
require
have the owner.
that you be duly appointed. So if you don't appear here in a signature by the owner, then there's other proof that shows that you're authorized. That's our problem.
Like, they're here to say, yes, this is
Is-
our
is-
architect.
Oh,
Is the
okay.
letter?
Although there is a
sufficient?
letter
There is a letter,
that appoints Pam as their representative.
but it's
in
not
her absence.
signed. I don't know if that's,
Yeah, actually.
I don't know, let
Yeah,
the lawyer
I don't
rule
know.
on this. The real lawyer,
true. They
the
did-
the real lawyer.
The real lawyer? No, the question is whether we can go ahead without them? Was that the issue?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. This letter explains why they're not here, a little bit about
Yeah.
the property, but,
It does say, we are confident Pam Fine can represent our
Yeah.
changes very
yeah,
well.
I think that Ms. Fine is able to represent them in this circumstance. If there's some question that comes up, you need to have an answer from them, we can always carry it for that purpose.
Yeah, we had a letter.
Okay, and I'll make sure that any further application will have my info as the agent. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this house, 1035 Washington Street, it's in a very prominent location. So it's right across the street from the Physic Estate. It's on Washington Street, a very documented historical street. And this house is not historical. So it was built about 2017, 2018, as far as I can see from documentation that I've looked up. So it's only about 5 or 6 years old. But it was built by an architect and a builder who had care for what the design looked like so that it complemented the streetscape. So it's done very well. And when I first met them at the house, the inside was immaculate, the outside was beautiful, very well taken care of residence. So the reason that I'm here today is they needed to add a very small addition on the second floor. So you'll see in the packet, if we go to the P1 sheet, which is the plans, you'll see that sheet shows the property site plan and, some zoning information. Basically, the site plan is unchanged. We're not changing anything as far as sidewalks, driveways. There's a pool in the back. There's an existing detached garage, front porch. Nothing is changing. You'll see there's a small box located at the bottom where it shows what area we're adding to the building size. So you'll see first floor is 0, second floor is 268 square feet, and that habitable attic that we have is also a 0. So it's a very minor addition. If you flip to the P2 sheet, you'll see in the back, on the proposed second floor, it is about 10'4" by 25'11", so about 26 by 10'4". We have a small bedroom, an extra bathroom, and some closet storage space. What we did was we aligned the addition with the existing rear portion of the second floor. It has a gable roof line that we just extended. And then you'll see on the right side, we had to jog it in about 2 feet. This is for zoning purposes, so that we wouldn't need any variances. So this would be a variance-free application if it is approved. We'll jump to the P3 sheet. And you'll see on that level, we have a shed dormer proposed, and it's very, very small. You'll see the set of stairs that go up there, and when you reach the top, you most likely will hit your head. So it was intended to be a walk-up attic, but it really doesn't function as a walk-up attic. So this dormer should add a little bit of height up there so that you don't hit your head if you are, walking from one side of the stair or the other. If you jump to the next sheet, which is the P4 sheet, you'll see that shed dormer added along the side elevations. It's very, very minimal. We're only about 5'10" tall, and it hooks into the main gable. It's along the back side of the gable, so you will not see that from the street. And that roof will be a standing seam metal roof because of the pitch. And that second floor addition that I mentioned, you'll see that on the proposed rear elevation. We have the bank of windows along the back, and then that again carries that gable roof line towards the back area. I have a small roof canopy going around the perimeter of that addition, which will function as a divider between the existing back porch on the first floor and then the second floor addition above it. So P5 is just a photo sheet. You'll see we have a cedar clad building. We're intending on extending that cedar towards the back of the addition. We'll have GAF timber-lined roofing on that second floor addition. And like I said, on the dormers, we'll have the standing seam metal roof. And as far as windows go, the house, like I said, was built 5 or 6 years ago. So they use the Anderson 400. So our intention is to use that for the bank of windows that we're adding on the addition. And I believe that's it. Unless I missed anything, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, this is pretty straightforward, so I would open it up to, rather than go around the room. Does anyone have any questions or observations on this application?
There's only the new Anderson windows will be on the very back.
Yes, we're not
No side
replacing,
or anywhere.
no, it's going to be, because it's 5, 6 years old, so the windows are in perfect condition. So we're just intending on using the same line of windows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions?
Johnson Conference.
Questions? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion the application be approved as presented.
Second?
Sorry, I had to wait 3 hours.
I'm sorry, I missed the second.
It's worth the wait.
Corbett and I tied, but you can give it to Corbett.
Who seconded the motion?
I made the motion.
I second it.
Corbin.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stredick.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm just going to stay here.
Oh, that's
Next.
great.
Next order of business is Carlin, 1102 Lafayette Street, Block 1113, Lot 1. This is a contributing property, garage demolition. And then that will be followed up by the same applicant for an addition and an attached garage, a shed, windows, doorway, walkways, and fence. So first is the demolition.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from these deliberations. I live within 200 feet of this property.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Pam Fine from Fine Architecture. I am with my clients tonight. And we are presenting to you 1102 Lafayette Street, Cape May. My clients are Martin and Valerie Carlin, which are the owners. We will first start with the detached garage demolition. So I'm first going to mention in the historic property report, if you look under the description, that very first sentence, you'll see it says 1102 Lafayette Street, built in 1870, contributes to the significance of Cape May Historic District. A garage on the property, built between 1933 and 1945, does not contribute to its significance. So, that being said, we are proposing the removal of this garage. Let's see, so I have the SU drawings, which show the existing garage plan, which I measured. The elevations show you the shape of the roof structure. It's a little bit straighter in these drawings than in real life. If you turn the page, you'll see there's significant settling going on in the existing roof line. The walls are bowed out, there's rot, termite damage, you name it. So I'm going to run through the 7 points of demolition, since we're not relocating, and give you our reasons why we are proposing demolition. Number 1, its historic, architectural, cultural, and aesthetic significance. Again, this is a one-car garage. Nothing historical, architectural, cultural, or aesthetically significant about it. It can be easily reproduced, and so there is no reason to keep it. Number 2, its current and potential use for those purposes currently permitted by this chapter. Again, it is a one-car garage. Its use is to store cars. It measures about 12 feet by 16, which is very, very small. To store an actual car legally needs to be 9 by 18. So this garage would not meet those requirements. Number 3, its importance to the municipality and the extent to which its historical or architectural value is such that its removal will be detrimental to the integrity of the historic property. In the historic property report, it clearly stated that it is not contributing to the historical designation. Number 4, the extent to which it is of such old, unusual, or uncommon design, craftsmanship, texture, or material that it could not be reproduced. That is not true. It is easily reproduced, one-car garage. There's really nothing special about the design or craftsmanship. Number 5, the extent to which its retention would increase property values, promote business, create new positions, attract tourists, students, writers, historians. I don't believe any of that applies to this situation. We're just talking about a single-car garage that is detached. Number 6, the impact of its removal upon the historic district. Again, I'll refer back to the property historical report that says it does not contribute. And number 7, the structural soundness and integrity of the building and the economic feasibility of restoring or rehabbing the structure so as to comply with the requirements of the applicable building codes. Again, we have significant settling going on. The roof is sagging. We have termite damage, rot damage, just old house, old building syndrome going on. So I don't believe that it's worth trying to save it. It's too small. We'd have to enlarge it anyway. So those are our 7 reasons for not keeping the detached garage.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move we grant demolition permit for this property.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Tom Carroll?
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Last one. Okay, so we are, again, here on behalf of 1102 Lafayette Street for Martin and Valerie Carlin. We are proposing a renovation to the historic building. So I know the packet's kind of been reorganized a little bit, so just stop me if I'm kind of confusing you. It's a lot to take in, so I'll try to do my best to make it as easy and understandable as possible. So I'll start with the property report packet. I think that gives you a good idea of the history of the property, obviously, and along with that property report, my clients did a very, very detailed and thorough job researching the progression of additions, changes, building footprint changes through the years. And it dated back to 1872, which is amazing. But you can follow it from 1872 to 1886 to 1890, all the way up to present. And you can see the last couple of sheets is a really nice depiction of what exactly changed on that footprint. So 1872, we had what was that main 2.5-story colonial home. And we had some various little additions along the right side. actually along the backside, because Schellinger was on the right. So those were removed in 1886. A new addition was made. You can see the neighboring property was developed a little bit. 1890, it looked like the house was widened, lengthened. There was another addition in the back. So you can see it progress through the years, but for the most part, that main rectangle of the house along Lafayette has stayed. So that was our thinking. We keep that. That is a historical piece that we want to preserve. We are not proposing touching, yep.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we're not proposing any changes to that street frontage along Lafayette. And so I'll run through what we're actually going to do. So if you look on the P sheets,
What sheet?
P1, so that's the packet showing the renovation. And I think it's good to have it set alongside of the SU1 sheet, so you can kind of see and compare what exactly is changing. So you'll see with the house, nothing on Lafayette changes. It's important, I think, to mention that the space in the back, so we have like a dining area, kitchen, we have a laundry area, a bedroom, various other like powder rooms, hallways, things like that. That area is actually the same area as what we're proposing the changes in. So we are proposing a new kitchen layout, a new dining area, new office space, laundry room, basically the same program in that same footprint. The only change is what you can see along the left side. So you'll see a new room that we added, which is like a gathering room. We have a fireplace. That is in the area of where there's an existing fire escape along the left side of this house. So there's a stair, an L-shaped stair that runs up and connects to the second floor, to the habitable attic. So we're proposing removing that. And I think that is a huge change. I think it's a great change, actually. That was one of the things that bothered me upon visiting the site, seeing the house, seeing this stair along the left side of the house that was covered in white lattice. It was just, it took all the focus away from the main house, I thought. So taking that away and extending the house, a one-story portion with a gathering area, with a beautiful bank of windows and a fireplace, I think is really fitting. And then you'll see that we have additional covered spaces in the back. We're proposing I'll call it a semi-detached garage because it's technically not attached as far as like heated space or air-conditioned space to the house. It's merely attached by what I'll call a breezeway or like a rear porch area. And then I relocated that second floor, that stair to the second floor to next to the garage so that it's all tucked away. You can't see it from the street. I thought that was just really important. Again, to stay on the P1 sheet, we're proposing a new pool. It's tucked away in the back corner on the left side. We're going to have fences to shield that from the street. And again, it's very, very far set back from Lafayette.
What do you mean by new pool by others?
New pool by another company, so I don't do the actual pool design, that's all. And then we have a couple other little buildings that we're proposing. We have a little gardener shed in the back. We have the pool equipment, a little shed tucked away behind that garden shed. We have a trash enclosure. If you see on the existing site plan, all of that is stone right now. It feels like a very commercial parking lot, which it kind of is. It functions as a bed and breakfast. So we thought that was important to take that away and make it more homey. It's a residence now, so.
It's not a bed and breakfast, it's private residence.
Yeah, so they're gonna run it as a residence now, not a bed and breakfast, so it is changing use in that way. So, so we're proposing a new driveway, pervious paver stone, pool surround, lots of landscaping. So I think that covers it for the P1 sheet. So I'll flip over, and then the P2 will give you a little bit of a closer view of what we're actually proposing for the floor plan. So again, that front area of the house along Lafayette, that is staying. We are proposing all new windows. Right now, they're the vinyl replacements. So we're proposing the JELD-WIN all wood, non-clad, pre-primed. So throughout the house. So everything will match. We'll have the divided lights. So it will look historic as far as the windows go, which I think is a big plus to the actual residents. So along the back, we have, again, that addition takes up the same amount of square footage as what is currently there. And then we have that new gathering room to the left. You'll see behind that is the covered porch area. And then behind everything is that detached garage, which is large enough to finally fit a car in. We didn't want the garage door to face Schellinger. So we have it oriented away from the street, so there's no way you'll ever see the garage door. Schellinger is a one-way street, so the only way you'd see it is if you were on foot. So we thought that was a very important detail to carry through to the new design. If you jump to the second floor plan, you'll see right now, if you look at the S2 sheet, second floor plan, there's a very odd shaped bedroom. So there's like a bathroom cut into the corner, a closet. There's that fire escape stair that kind of cuts above in the ceiling. That's on the S2 sheet. And the ceiling height is insanely low. So the door actually that goes into that bedroom is cut on an angle. So we thought that should be changed. So correcting the ceiling height, correcting the floor plan, removing that stair, that was all very important. So we are proposing a new bedroom. It would be the master bedroom on that level. When we get to the elevations, you'll see how the roof all ties in because that was important as well. But we have the master bedroom, a gas fireplace, and a new bathroom. We also have a walk-in closet kind of tucked between the new addition and the old house. And then if you work your way back, we went with a flat roof. This was a design feature that we are totally open to hearing your thoughts and suggestions on. We could easily add a gable roof on a portion of the flat roof. I realize that it's a large area of flat roof, so we could easily partition it into an area where there's a gable roof, if that's a look that you would prefer over, a flat roof and a railing. So that is definitely something that we are open to suggestion on, but there is a connection to the gable roof of the garage, which will provide my clients more storage space in the future. And that pretty much does it for that level. And then we'll finally make it onto the third floor. Nothing is happening up here other than windows, so it's kind of boring, but you'll see how the roof ties in when we go to the next page. So P4, you'll see that front elevation, and then if we jump to the S3 sheet, that's the old elevation. So have those side by side, you can see the change. So that stair that I mentioned, the fire escape on the existing house, that's going away. In its place, we're adding a gathering room with a bank of windows and a flat roof. The railing will mimic what's on the existing front porch. And then we're going to have a brick fireplace and chimney just beyond that. Everything, all materials will be wood, clapboard, fascia, soffits, window trim. Everything is wood. If you look at the proposed front elevation on Schellinger and the existing front elevation on that same street, you'll see how the new addition relates to the old house and the gable ends, and then how that garage fits into that, whole addition to tie everything together. So this is really the side that will see the most change. Again, it's an alleyway, it's a one-way street. I feel like what we're proposing is a benefit. It enhances the house. We took the notion to lower fascia lines. The roof peak lines are lower. They kind of scale down as we go further back. We wanted the massing to follow that same idea, but still be complementary to what's there today. And then if we jump to the next sheet, which is P5, and then the same for the SC4, you'll see the back elevation, existing rear, which is opposite Lafayette. You'll see the first floor is really that same massing. We just have that flat roof with the wood railings wrapping around. And then the second floor, you'll see that master bedroom addition. Compared to the existing rear elevation, you'll see that really, really short gable roof line, which just does not work for functional bedroom use. So, and finally, we'll look at the proposed side elevation and the existing side elevation. You'll see that's, the opposite side. We have the dual chimneys, which, again, that's something that we can talk about too. We wanted to get your opinion on that. We can pull a chimney in and make it a direct vent if you'd rather only see one. But again, that's kind of something we have on the table as well. But you can see we have complementary architectural features. We're proposing the brackets under the roof line. The fascia boards will match, the trim, window trim, clapboard, everything will complement what is there now on the house. And so the next sheets are really just documenting what that garage is looking like. You can see we have a cupola, weather vane, same ideas with the detailing of the roof lines. We'll be installing some metal, standing seam metal roof, carriage doors. So, yeah, the intent is to really enhance what's there already. And then the next sheet, P7, is just showing that shed. It's 10 feet tall, just a garden shed, something cute to be in the backyard. And again, we'll complement the house and its architectural detailing. We keep going to P8, that's your photo sheet, and you'll see what the house looks like from the streetscape. There's some street views to the left and the right, so you see how it kind of fits in with the neighborhood context. And P9 is just the garage to be demolished, so that's kind of it. If I miss anything, just let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Before we go around the room, I'm looking at P1, proposed site plan.
Yeah.
You're proposing an addition onto this existing contributing property that is clearly visible from the street, which is a challenge in itself. But I would like some clarification as to what these rooms are. You have a living room in the front right.
Yes.
Then you have a sitting room next to the dining room.
So if you go to P2, that will help with that. So the next sheet will have the room labeled, some furniture, sizes, things like that. So we have the living room up front on the front
Yeah,
left,
but-
front right.
Yeah, but, so, the new covered porch,
Along the back.
yeah. Is that heated and air conditioned?
No, it's basically just porch posts and a roof.
And a fireplace?
And a fireplace, yes.
Which is those two fireplaces.
Yes, yep.
Have a three-season porch?
No, no windows. No windows, just open. Yeah.
It just seems like we're taking a contributing house on an important street in the historic district. We're adding an addition that's clearly visible from the street.
That being the alley, street.
I think you're talking about Skellinger Alley,
Yeah.
right?
Lafayette or
Lafayette.
Well,
the gathering room?
Existing front elevation is
Right.
Lafayette. Side street will have to be
Yeah.
Skellinger.
So it's replacing the lattice stairs with the bank of windows as a gathering room instead of seeing the wraparound fire.
What's that?
Well, just bear with me, though. Unless I'm missing something and made a mistake. We have, we're adding a living room for all practical purposes, which is going to change the front of this house, when we already have a living room. And later on, we have some living space upstairs. Living room kind of space upstairs. So I'm not sure that I understand the need for that. I wouldn't challenge somebody for wanting to have more rooms than not, except it changes the front facade of this contributing building in a significant way.
May I ask a question? Can you identify when that ramp, fire escape, et cetera, was built? The thing from the front facade that's being changed to be removed and replaced by the,
It was probably in the 90s when they did the third floor.
in order to
It
get
was
fire
before
escape to
that.
come down.
Pardon me?
This was the Primrose Bed and Breakfast originally.
Right.
And we had a house, which we started in 97 on Columbia. And they had already been there 5 or 6 years when they put the,
Well, they opened the Primrose before they did the third floor. The third floor was after
For what reason?
the original stuff. So I believe it was sometime in the 90s.
If
I
you,
I know they sprinklered it during one of their major renovations.
if you look at the timeline of changes, it's 1991, and there's a photo here with no stair. So it was after 1991.
So the original facade looked like this, and then the fire escape
Sitting here.
rampway, whatever you want to call it, lattice work, was added on in the 90s.
Yeah.
So in lieu of that ugliness, will be a bank of windows.
Absolutely, I get the plan. I mean, and
And there'll be landscaping too, because it obviously,
I don't want to speak out of turn, but in my view, that part's an improvement.
This could be the open.
But we're still trying to understand what your rooms are.
You shortened the Skellinger Avenue elevation by, what, 3 windows?
Yes,
Yeah,
Because
yes,
that was their dining room.
yes.
But they could change some of that.
Yep.
What's the size of this gathering room?
The new gathering room is about 16 and a half by 14. So really, there's the existing living room in the front, which is like a parlor space. It's closed off by doors. It's not close to the kitchen. It's not close to the dining area. What we're proposing with the gathering room is really somewhere where the family will use, and it will connect to the backyard easier. So that existing living room, yeah.
I just wanted to know.
Okay.
Like if I'm looking at this, if I'm on Lafayette Street and I'm looking at this house, how much is this addition coming?
Oh, okay, yeah.
16 feet, right?
No, it's actually less than 16 because
about
that
12.
wall is pulled in where the air conditioners are. So you see that wall is about 4 feet over. So it's probably like 12. It's probably like 12 feet, yeah,
So it's taking some of the existing laundry room space.
exactly.
I couldn't see measurements.
Yeah, I'll throw some measurements on when we come back for a final, for sure.
But that protrusion is smaller than the original ramp,
Stair,
whatever it's called, launching pad.
much more unsightly.
But that doesn't make it,
Yeah, that
that doesn't make it right.
Well, but the problem occurred in the 90s when that thing was added to the facade of the house. Right? I mean, it's not, this house was straight and square without
Right.
any visibility. So in the 1990s, somebody put this thing off of the
But, you know, when you're doing preservation work, and you have a change of use or something that you decide to do something like that, then the idea is to return the property back to its, especially the front facade.
I agree that that might be an object, but I think that what we have proposed versus what is there now is an improvement.
But an improvement is.
Well, it's, what's there is now is awful. It should have never happened in the first
Well,
place.
then we should just ask them to tear that down.
Well, but I think, that wasn't included in the demolition permit. But I'm not as, to me, I can see the original house, I can see the extension. To me, the extension is a good thing and within the permissible latitude of having a new room. That's my personal view.
Well, one of the things Tom and I had just talked about, if we find it acceptable to have a 12-foot addition out, it might soften it if there's a way to flip these two rooms and get rid of one of the fireplaces, by the way. But anyway, flip these two rooms. You need to get an entrance into the house. And put the porch in the front, the open porch, then it would be even further softened because it would look like a porch from the front.
Yeah, instead of a room, it would look like a porch.
So,
Except the open porch is near the swimming pool.
Yeah,
Right.
So you're trying to get open.
That's your living area.
And the view from Lafayette won't change that much because there'll be landscaping, so it's not like you're going to see a big extension all of a sudden that's just there.
Warren, it doesn't start until that section right there.
no, I
Because you
understand.
got the air conditioning and everything here.
And if we,
So it's porch, main building, air conditioning, and before you have that bump out.
if we flipped the gathering room and the covered porch, the gathering room really can't move front or back. It kind of has to stay where it is or becomes unusable. So then the porch would get closer to Lafayette, and I think that would be even more apparent and obvious.
You might
So,
get away from Lafayette.
yeah, I wanted to push it back,
See,
exactly.
To me, this is very similar to that corner property that we reviewed at New York and Madison, where we were dealing with the porte cochere, a new garage that was going to be attached on the New York side, and then extension along Madison, which to me is very much paralleled by the extension along Skellinger that I see.
But certainly not the scale.
But we didn't let them do that.
We did. After two times, they came back, they reduced it, and it became in proportionate to the original building.
We're only adding 400 square feet
Right.
total in this renovation.
They're not
For the
adding.
most part, we're reconfiguring an existing footprint to make it more livable and have more privacy in the back. We don't want a front porch hanging out on Lafayette Street. We want that distraction to be in the back.
That's a common complaint with people that do end up on Lafayette Street. You know.
Right,
There is an awful lot of noise, and no matter how much the city tries to slow it down, you know.
Well, what if you moved the gathering room, put it next to the garage?
I think that's a little unfair. You want to keep, there's like two living rooms, you know, there's the formal parlor and the family.
And what we would call a
No,
family
wait a minute.
room.
I said you put the gathering room back here. So it's not visible from Lafayette Street. That gives you this same, it's the same dynamic. You have a kitchen, living room, family, den.
The gathering room on that side allows us to open the kitchen to the gathering room. If you're going to the side that exists today, because that's where our gathering room is today, there's a wall there, and then you have we have a lot of foot traffic, which we love. They admire the gardens and all that, but we don't have our privacy when we're sitting in there as people are walking by the house. So, and the kitchen, would it be possible for the kitchen to open up that way? I don't know, but based on.
It is-
what
You'd
we
have to
for the
walk
basement and
through a
things
lot
like
of rooms
that.
to get to the gathering room, which is,
Yeah.
kind
For the
of
living area, you
troubling.
want the open kitchen, walk to the gathering room, out to the rear porch, and then you go out to the pool.
So on top of the gathering room is a new bedroom.
No, so on top of the gathering room is just a flat roof. The new bedroom is
over here.
directly behind,
Bedroom's
yeah.
back there.
I have a quick question. The proposed rear elevation, I'm looking at the covered porch, but it looks like there are windows in there.
I think that's just the wall beyond, so you're looking at the windows on the back wall of the gathering room, if that makes sense.
I see.
Yeah.
And then the steps, so that's beyond.
Yeah, that's just
So you-
beyond under
Okay.
the gathering room area.
So maybe that's what you're looking at, Warren, I'm wondering. So you don't see just the pillars, you're actually seeing the windows beyond.
There's the house as
Well-
it exists.
Yeah, but you're still going to see that extension from Lafayette Street.
Yeah, oh yeah, you'll
Yeah.
see about 12 to
and Which
14
is what
foot.
we're trying to avoid,
Doesn't bother me.
I don't know why, though.
because it spoils the side of the house,
But it,
How?
the original footprint of the house.
but it increases what's there today. It enhances what's there today.
Well, that, I understand that, but that argument is moot when you're looking at a contributing house and historic preservation. When you make a change, you try to make it change so that it returns to its original look. Now, we keep approving additions in the back. I guess you could argue you shouldn't make any additions, but we approve additions in the back. It's just that this house, when you look at it, has a very classic, historic facade. And now bump it out 12 feet, in my estimation, just destroys that
But
facade.
that 12 feet is about 30 feet back.
35,
from
yeah,
the front of the
35
house.
feet
Yeah,
back.
And if you put landscaping, you won't even see it.
I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. I think it's a very, very nice, comfortable layout. The additions
Is it
are-
your intention to landscape that area in front of the gathering room addition in place of the awful ramp,
Oh, yeah. Yes.
whatever it is?
The layout of this is kind of like the house that we spend so much time on Madison Avenue, and,
Didn't I just say that?
Yes.
Where have you been?
but it angles, you have the house,
We had a New York Avenue and a Madison Avenue issue with that
I wasn't
house.
listening to you.
It figures.
From New York Avenue, it looks good. Madison Avenue, the extension in the back doubles the size of the house.
But Corbin, we had them come back, and they did reduce proportionally something that we ultimately approved.
And ours is certainly not double.
And theirs doesn't
Theirs
rise,
doesn't.
theirs doesn't rise to that level.
Not at all.
Excuse me.
So another thing I want to mention real quick is the proposed site plan on P1. You'll see this area here. It looks like a bunch of dead space or grass space. That's intended to be heavily planted gardens, like English gardens, bushes, trees. So I can come back with a landscape plan if that makes it a little bit easier to soften that addition that sits back, 35 feet. I think that's really important to know that.
I think if it had a binding landscaping plan that would obscure that addition, I could be supportive of this. I mean, it's very difficult to rearrange those rooms, and you ought to have them where you want them if we can accommodate that, not where we want them. So I'm supportive of the, and I think it doesn't come back to what would have been the plain facade before the awful ramp stairway was added. But I believe it's an improvement, and if you're willing to obscure it, even though it's further back, and you're willing to obscure it with a landscaping commitment, I could support that.
We've done considerable landscape investment since we bought the property, and we plan to do more with the outdoor living space that we desire.
I've had my say.
I'll make a motion for conceptual approval of the plan, subject to a return visit with a landscaping plan for the front left of the yard that will hide as much as possible the small extension going off that side.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Testa. Mr. Copeland?
No.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
No.
Ms. Wilson Stredick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me?
Isn't it 3-3?
No. Four.
4-2?
4-3, right? 4-2.
4-2, because you're missing one.
John was,
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Open to the public, and since we see no public,
We had a public.
there was a public,
We
they
had a
waited
public.
all of this time. and
Yeah.
We worm out.
we bore him to death.
I don't know. I hope they didn't want to comment on one of the other applications.
Yeah.
So, anyway, discussion,
Before we adjourn, I would like to say something.
that's where we are. We're at the discussion.
We're getting ready to
session.
adjourn.
No, not yet.
So everybody knows that next Monday, Stephen Smolin will be here to go over these plans. And he sent everybody plans like, I don't know, the beginning of April, I think, or something like that, and asked for people to comment. And a lot of people have not yet commented on these plans. So I'm hopeful, it would be very helpful to him if people could do that. So what I wanted to ask is, have people not commented because they can't use the Google, or because they haven't had time, or what's the situation?
I've been trying to wade through I got to one section where the PowerPoint section is up, but the second section is 98 pages, and I still don't know how thick the other one is. It takes, and trying to do a little bit of studying back and forth. That's just been, with other things,
It's been time consuming.
time-consuming.
110 pages.
Yeah. Well, then I'm considerably behind Corbin, because I intended to start it between now and the end of the week and furnish comments by the meeting. I just haven't had a chance.
Okay, all right, well, I think it will be very helpful for this meeting. I mean, some of the people, like John and Janice and myself and B, are on this subcommittee. So we've
Yeah.
had him, we've listened to this stuff several times now, and Lorraine's been on some of it that she's been able to participate on. And Stephen has had meetings with a lot of different people in the city to make sure that he has things straight and that he's representing things straight. But he really is depending on people to say to him, this should be changed, or this isn't right, or whatever, so that he can prepare for this meeting on Monday. So if,
just want to say, I did read through the whole thing and comment through it.
yeah,
And it is long, but I think each of us can focus on the parts that we actually have some expertise on. I skimmed all the stuff about the styles and details, because that's not my area. And Stephen is very sharp on that. But I was really careful about the way the language is used for the public. I don't want jargon, I don't want it to be too much in the passive voice to sound preachy or anything like that. And in general, he isn't. I mean, we're getting a lot for our money with this guy. He is doing a good job. And so I hope everybody will give him the respect to read the work, because when he comes next week, that's his first chance to get the commission to look at this that he's put so much time in, and the committee too, over the last 6 months, really.
One of my biggest
months.
questions is exactly how do we use it? To me, it's a complete education on doing the absolute perfect preservation job, right down to naming every element of the building
Yeah.
with the right name and all. And I think if we expect people to come before us with following everything suggested in there, we're going to really run into a
so
wall.
what you need to do is
Well,
just
let me
make it
just finish. I really think we have to call it the standards, But in a lot of ways, we sort of have to use it as our guideline as we try to seek as close to perfection as we come. And just like we do today, you know, if you're going to do these three things really the way we want them, you know, we'll overlook those old windows coming out and new windows coming in. And I think we will use it that way. But I tell you, to me, it's scary to think that, you know, on page 86 here, if you get to the small print at the bottom, I think the people coming before us are not going to study.
Look, the existing standards are hard enough for people to follow. I don't suspect these are going to be any easier. Yeah, they may be a little bit better written,
But
better written.
they're going to be online, so they'll be searchable.
Yeah.
You can search for your style, you know. And truly, I mean, I don't think people are looking to be educated. Most people aren't. Like these recent applicants who did all that research on the changes in their house, that's exceptional.
Yeah.
Most people,
So I think there's two things here that are really important. One of which is that Stephen is working on a contract.
Yeah.
And the contract was written by the state. It was not written by us. And the contract specifies what kinds of things have to be in these standards. So he might have something that's in too much detail or whatever it is. And I certainly think people should comment. All you have to do is say, I don't think people need this level of detail. That's all you have to do is just write that in the comment. Because if somebody doesn't say that, he doesn't know, right? So, but in the end, some sections may have to be there simply because they're part of the contract, although he's moved around a lot. I mean, I asked him to take all that stuff about style in the front of the guidelines and put it in the back. Nobody wants to read that. So, and there's probably other situations too, where there are things that need to make these more friendly. So that's what people need to say to him, is make this less jargony, or we think this should be, I'm always writing, this should be in English, Stephen. You know, so write something like that so that he has an idea of who the people are, right? But we have to say that to him. He's not going to get that on his own.
Do we intend this to be a sort of section by section review, going page by page, whatever it's called, as we go through this with him?
no. He's much better at summarizing and moving through. We're not going to have a 3-hour meeting going through the whole thing.
I just wonder the level of details you'd expect to be.
In the beginning of this document, I think you said you hadn't looked at it yet, but in
Right,
the beginning
I'm
of this
speaking from
document,
ignorance.
it has a table of contents. So I think you could do kind of what Janice was talking about. Look through, see what you really want to comment on. You know, maybe you don't want to comment on the introduction or whatever. And then you click on that section, you look through that section, you type your comment. That's all you have to do.
It's a few hours.
I remember
It's not that
when we did this book. We had what we thought was a pretty good product.
Right.
The night before it was supposed to be published, we were here at a meeting with the planning board and zoning board, and the attorney, then attorney for the zoning board, picked it way apart.
Right.
I mean, he didn't like
Some things never
historic
change.
preservation.
There's really nothing like last-minute draftsmanship.
Right, right.
So,
Are we going to let that happen?
No, I think the process for it, why aren't you speaking? And no, I'm looking at Bob. Tell him how long you've worked on those charts with him.
And we're not done.
Well, I know.
We've had several meetings with the attorneys going over the flow chart at the beginning of the diagram. Development application, permit application. And Steve has come up with a couple different alternatives, which is not satisfactory because it's just too complicated. So we're still working on that. We don't have the final product.
Right.
And that's the first 2 pages.
Yeah.
Well, I have a real adventure to look forward to.
plus
the process, once we agree on this, then it goes to, I say city council, but it goes to planning.
Planning board.
So
No, I think it goes to city council.
it goes to planning.
It goes
Well,
to city
Chris Dillon
council for
Schwartz says
adoption
it
as an
goes to
ordinance,
city
and they have to
And they're
refer
gonna
it to
send it
planning
to-
board.
I don't know where
comment.
it goes, but that's what Chris says.
Council, and then you have two members of council who sit on the planning board.
But it doesn't go to the zoning board.
No,
No,
no.
we're looking at consistency.
It will go to planning board for input to you.
It goes to planning, it does. So it's city council, and then they go to planning, and then it comes back
And then
to
it comes
city
back to
council.
council.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have, there's a long way to go.
We adjourned.
No. No, I have a half a dozen things I want to bring up.
Well, have fun.
Any other comments or?
Just one quick question. We did have two applications here about roofs, and I'm sorry to prolong this, but roofs for accessory buildings. Thoughts here as far as that's concerned? The most recent application that we just had here, they want to put a shed on. I was looking at the roof pitch on that. It just didn't have any character. Thoughts on it, and as well as the one with the pool house where they had to do that addition. If that was pulled down 2 foot, it would be pretty close to a flat roof.
Yeah.
So, is that something that we need to look at as well?
Well, we can look at it, but that is zoning.
Yeah, it's, right, it would go back to,
We can make a comment.
to an ordinance, but,
recommendation to zoning.
but just in general, comments as
No, I
far as
would
that's
agree with that.
concerned.
When the roof is that close to flat, it should be a metal roof, standing seam roof, something like that, rather than a shingle roof.
Or
So
do
we
we-
could certainly encourage people to say, that part should be tin.
Or do we look at maybe
Yeah.
increasing that height or coming up
Right,
with
right. I mean, if it begins to drive down the available materials, and there's no real reason to have X height versus X plus 2,
Yeah.
seems to me, it's, and, I don't know, it just depends on what your view is of how tall accessory structures ought to be, but 10's pretty short.
It is.
It is.
And I just looked at the design of just the two that we had tonight and felt that, a little bit higher of a peak, and a little bit more character.
I don't think anybody should have to jump through hoops creating pavilions and pathways
Yeah.
and stuff like that just to attach it to the house so that you can beat the
Yeah.
2-foot deadline or 2-foot.
I know.
It seems crazy to me.
The issue is, and just talking about it is one thing, but then nothing happens. Maybe we could have a motion next meeting, that wordsmith it around a little bit, make a recommendation to city council, who would make the recommendation to zoning. But we ought to wordsmith it so it,
Yeah, if you go to if it's a certain, size, then your height should be this, depending on the peaks, things like that. So you get, or a
'cause
pitch.
I suspect there's the reason that it's 10 feet is because they
You
don't
don't,
want it
you don't want it second
visible
floors,
from,
or you don't want second floors.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
So-
you're gonna call everything a shed.
So
Exactly.
Nobody used to have, nobody had pools.
It'd be a hell of a second floor with a 12-foot height.
Yes, we could have air conditioning in our sheds. So,
Well, I did ask Tom, though, about, Tom Lord, about how that house, as all of those structures were built with full basements. And in many times, those basements are wet and damp, and he has his entire basement dehumidified. So the man's serious about humidity. That much I can tell. What he does in his garage,
yeah,
another
right.
story.
At any rate, so we'll wordsmith something and then we can advance it. And what was the other issue for Lorraine?
The other issue was the artificial turf.
Yeah,
So I have two things.
yeah.
Maybe we should take a look at the one before I bring it back to council.
The artificial turf,
That I
think you can.
can
carry
do
to
that
council.
right now.
The other one, we should be more articulate
I think.
and spend some time defining what we a recommendation. But the artificial turf has, I mean, that is, I think it's a problem, but.
I think
as
it
you-
should possibly go to the Environmental Commission as well as,
I just want to explain what I said a little bit more and the reason, I didn't want to say it with the people here. But there was an exhaustive article in the Philadelphia papers that talked about the artificial turf that the Phillies played on when they were in Veterans Stadium for years, and it got very hot. It's a bowl. So as it got hot, gave off, they believe the link is some kind of noxious gas that these ball players absorbed over the years. Many of them in a younger age have passed away from the same kind of rare brain cancer. Darren Galton was the focus of the article. He died at 55. They named a half a dozen others where the autopsies showed the same kind of, and that's what they believe the link is. So I don't know whether this turf is conducive to that or not, but it's a concern.
Well,
I don't
it's
trust
significantly
it, I
different
don't
because
like
that
it,
was on
and I don't
concrete.
think we
This
should
is
say
not.
it.
This is on a sand bed and then a drainage bed, but it's polypropylene. There are volatile organic compounds that off-gas when it gets hot. It definitely is warmer than if you look at the life cycle assessment, you guys know what life cycle assessment is? You look at a product from its extraction of raw materials to its manufacture, to its installation, to its useful life, then to its whatever at the end of its useful life you do with it.
Right.
And across 13 different environmental impact indicators, you can measure what those impacts are across cradle to grave of its life. And so one of the things that people often talk about is if you use regular grass, well, you've got a petroleum engine that's cutting the grass 28 times a year. But when you compare that to cycle assessment analysis of an artificial product over time, particularly since you have to replace it, you can compare pretty easily that, you know, nothing's perfect, right? But it's not just that, oh, we're not using gasoline anymore. There are all these other indicators, and probably the biggest one is healthy soil.
Healthy soil.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those situations that unless it is handled on a citywide basis with some forethought, we are going to have applications for AstroTurf City popping up all over town.
I would love to see it if we could just prohibit it. That way it's just not an
Ban
issue,
it.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
From an environmental base,
environmental issue.
I think it shouldn't be approved. As you heard me, though, I don't think it's an HPC issue. Our charge, though, is to bring it, and so we'll have some wording for next month that we can then,
Are we adjourning?
unless somebody has something else.
Motion to adjourn. Done.